Chapter 758. What is this? The Red Devil God Emperor had never seen it before, but he instinctively felt threatened. However, he was unable to block it in time. The tip of the spear pierced the white ice armor on his shoulder. This time, the terrifying sharpness forcefully penetrated the white ice armor and pierced into his body. The termination energy on the tip of the spear instantly exploded, and the killing undulations were transmitted to the Red Devil God Emperor's entire body. The Red Devil God Emperor's face suddenly turned red. He immediately controlled the cold ice power to freeze his body, trying his best to protect his body and expel the terrifying termination energy and the killing undulations. The Eastern European Snow Eagle immediately retracted his spear and prepared to stab a second time. The Red Devil God Emperor's face turned pale. Although he had used the cold ice power to protect more than half of his life force, he had still lost nearly 30% of it. Although he would protect himself more carefully in the future, he estimated that he would die in 8 to 10 spears. He had lost. Red Devil God Emperor understood this point. Even though he still had some small tricks up his sleeves against Ying, who was hiding so well that it was hard to detect him, and against this frightening spear technique, he knew he would definitely lose. I never thought that I, the Red Devil God Emperor, would lose to a paragon one day. Ha ha ha. The Red Devil God Emperor laughed out loud. His single eye returned to normal and the coldness started to recede. However, at the same time, many incarnations appeared around him. His main body also disappeared into thin air and hid among the incarnations. The incarnations fled in all directions. Escape? Dongbua Shuang appeared. The surroundings suddenly erupted with a blood-colored wave. The slaughter domain surged in all directions. This time, the speed at which it spread was clearly much faster. However, the Red Devil God Emperor was clearly going all out. One by one, the incarnations quickly fled. Boom! The surging blood-colored wave instantly arrived in front of the First Highness Jiao Yunteng. Jiao Yunteng's expression changed greatly as he looked at the incoming blood-colored wave. He was very clear that he would not be able to withstand the power of the slaughter domain. Don't kill him, capture him alive. The Third Highness Jiao Yunlu shouted. With this shout, the blood-colored wave that had rushed in front of the First Highness immediately split apart, avoiding the First Highness and continuing to chase after the clones. However, the speed of the clones was too fast, and the range of the planetary matrix was too small. A portion of the Red Devil God Emperor's clones were drowned by the slaughter domain, but a large number of them still rushed out. Once they rushed out of the range of the planetary matrix, the Red Devil God Emperor disappeared without a trace. He did not think of saving the First Highness. After all, he did not have any hope in that situation. If he insisted on saving the First Highness, he was afraid that he would really lose his life. Although it was only a clone, the Red Devil God Emperor did not want to die. Being defeated by a venerable was completely different from being killed by a venerable. The Red Devil God Emperor still hoped to save some face. Oh! Far away in the starry sky, the Red Devil God Emperor appeared. He looked back and heaved a sigh of relief. He felt a little helpless inside. How embarrassing. My hometown Cosmos has been conquered. After coming to this Devil Mountain Cosmos, I wanted to go to the primogenitor Devil Mountain, yet I was crushed and killed. For the sake of cultivation resources, I decided to rely on the First Highness of a Void God clan. Who would have thought that I would be defeated by a paragon? The Red Devil God Emperor shook his head. Even though he did not save the First Highness, he did not care at all. After all, it was the First Highness who begged him. He was a ruler. If he really wanted to rely on the First Highness, the 3 Void God clans, as long as they had not become rulers, would most likely yearn for it. But for a ruler to be the protector of a paragon, it was quite embarrassing. I've really lost a lot of face this time. Such a huge matter has been witnessed by the 2 Highnesses and so many protectors. It will likely spread across the entire Devil Mountain Cosmos very soon. There are also experts from other cosmos. Dongbua Shuang became famous by stepping on me. The Red Devil God Emperor felt slightly sorrowful, but he accepted it wholeheartedly. Because Dongbua Shuang had been provoking him in the previous battle, forcing him to unleash his strongest power. He had nothing to say about being defeated under the condition of unleashing his strongest power. The blood wave surged, surrounding the First Highness Jiao Yunteng and his protectors. Dongbua Shuang. The First Highness squeezed out a smile and said, "You relied on my little brother just for some benefits, right? Whatever he gave you, I can give you even more." "It's too late," Dongbua Shuang said. In the past, he needed an opportunity to interact with other cultivation systems of laws. Now that he had obtained what he wanted, all he needed now was to cultivate in seclusion. Protector Donghua. His Highness Jiao Yunlu Shandan Protector Tsong, and the other protectors rapidly flew over through the passageway created by the blood wave. These protectors looked at Donghua Shuiying with slight shock and admiration. It was just like how most paragons in the cultivator cosmos looked at Monarch Green. In fact, Donghua Shuiying was even more exaggerated. After all, he currently had 3 Daos and 2 of them had reached the bottleneck. His Dao of Ripple had also reached the apex. More importantly, he had the extremely powerful Voidwalker lineage. All of these allowed him to become even stronger than Monarch Green. Your Highness, Donghua Shuiying said, who should be killed and who should remain? Kill the other protectors but leave my big brother and Cha Yunong behind. His Highness Jiao Yunlu looked at Donghua Shuiying and said, Protector Donghua, if you have any thoughts, feel free to speak. Donghua Shuiying did not say anything. The surrounding blood-colored waves rippled slightly, enveloping the protectors. Shuiying did not have any enmity with them, but the battle between the 2 princes had lasted for a long time, and the protectors of the 3rd prince had died many times. If not for Shuiying's intervention, they would have been slaughtered as well. Donghua Shuiying naturally would not act pretentiously. After all, it was just a clone. At most, the other party would lose some treasures. With just a ripple from the slaughter domain, the other protectors were all killed. Only Cha Yunong and the First Highness Jiao Yunteng were left. Jiao Yunteng, my elder brother, did you think that such a day would come? The 3rd Highness Jiao Yunlu's body was trembling. The First Highness Jiao Yunteng did not look at his younger brother. Instead, he looked at Donghua Shuiying and asked, what did my younger brother give you? Other cultivation techniques and some absolute arts. Donghua Shuiying replied. Just these? The First Highness was in disbelief. The Devil Mountain Cosmos was very tolerant. Imparting cultivation techniques was very easy. Absolute arts were relatively precious, but to the First Highness and Third Highness, they were nothing much. A spear, armor, and a battleship. Donghua Shuiying said. The First Highness was speechless. It was normal for a Highness to have protectors. That's all? The First Highness looked at Donghua Shuiying before looking at the Third Highness Jiao Yunlu. My younger brother, your luck is truly good. I can give you 10 times or even 100 times more. Are you willing to be my protector? The First Highness looked at Donghua Shuiying. I can do it too. The Third Highness shouted. The Third Highness was somewhat nervous. After receiving benefits from others, I will do things for them. After speaking, Donghua Shuiying didn't say anything else. In Donghua Shuiying's bones, he was a person who would take revenge for enmity and repay kindness with kindness. In these 30 million years, the Third Highness had helped him a lot and he was indebted to him. If there was a favor, he would naturally repay it. The First Highness Jiao Yunteng knew that it was useless to persuade Qin Wentian. Such a heaven-defying paragon would naturally have his own pride. Jiao Yunteng spoke. My younger brother has the Black Devil Sacred Fruit. The Black Devil Sacred Fruit might not be of much use to other cultivation systems, but to our bloodline cultivation system, it is a supreme treasure. Why don't you kill my younger brother and snatch the Black Devil Sacred Fruit? The benefits that the Black Devil Sacred Fruit can be exchanged for is beyond your imagination. Jiao Yunteng looked at the pale-faced Third Highness Jiao Yunlu. Younger brother, it is still uncertain who will win. Black Devil Sacred Fruit? If I can't get it, don't even think of getting it. Jiao Yunteng's body suddenly exploded. However, the surging blood waves immediately drowned him. The shock waves from the explosion were easily extinguished by the slaughter domain. However, the surroundings were silent. Shandan, Protector Tsong and the rest were all looking at the Third Highness and Donghua Shuiying. Black Devil Sacred Fruit? There is still Cha Yunong. Your Highness, you should deal with him yourself. Donghua Shuiying spoke. With a thought, the boundless blood waves dissipated. After all, there was only Cha Yunong left. The Third Highness and the group of protectors could easily kill him. Protector Donghua? Brother Donghua? His Highness Jiao Yunlu looked at Donghua Shuiying. He couldn't help but rejoice. Your Highness. At this moment, Cha Yunong hurriedly shouted. Jiao Yunlu's expression changed. He turned his head and revealed an expression of anger. You still have the face to call me? I actually trusted you for so long. I must have been blind in the past. Kill him for me. Immediately, the group of protectors looked at Cha Yunong with killing intent. Jiao Yunlu brought Donghua Shuiying into the palace. The two of them sat down in a hall, and the female attendants served them wine. There was still snow outside. It was formed from the boundless frost chi that the Red Devil God Emperor had unleashed. Jiao Yunlu personally poured wine for Donghua Shuiying and smiled. I didn't expect that I, Jiao Yunlu, would be so fortunate to have Brother Dongbo as my protector. From today onwards, Brother Dongbo is no longer my protector. Instead, he is my brother. If you think highly of me, come drink this cup of wine. He personally placed a cup of wine in front of Dongbo Shuiying. Dongbo Shuiying raised his cup and said, "Thank you, Your Highness." The two of them raised their cups and drank at the same time. Ha ha ha. Jiao Yunlu was in an extremely good mood. Brother Dongbo was able to defeat the Red Devil God Emperor. It is truly impressive for a paragon to defeat a ruler. I believe this news will soon spread across the entire Devil Mountain cosmos and the surrounding cosmoses. Once this news spreads, I'm afraid some things will happen. Some things? Dongbo Shuiying revealed a look of astonishment. I hope Your Highness can guide me. After chatting with his protectors for so many years, he had a deep understanding of the Devil Mountain cosmos. He also understood what it meant for him to defeat the Red Devil God Emperor. Of course, his understanding was definitely not as deep as the Third Highness. Furthermore, revealing his strength was also part of his plan. His master, Bloodblade, had already discussed this with him. Snow Eagle, if you are forced to, you can reveal our cultivation system to the Devil Mountain cosmos. The laws and profound mystery system is not a big secret in the boundless primal chaos void. Our cultivation system emphasizes on comprehension. It is not a big deal if this gets out. Without the guidance of a senior, it will be very difficult to cultivate. Your mission is to collect everything that can help our cosmos, regardless of cultivation system, techniques, or anything else. Dongbo Shuiying had made ample preparations. With his current cultivation realm, he had already learned the doppelganger technique that Bloodblade had bestowed upon him. Currently, he had another doppelganger in the Devil Mountain cosmos. After all, the time flow here was 3,000 times faster than normal. Cultivating here would be extremely beneficial. You might have heard about it from the other protectors. However, they don't know much. His Highness Jiao Yunlu poured himself a cup of wine and said with a pleased tone, "Listen to me carefully." Chapter 759. Brother Dongbo, my Devil Mountain cosmos treats all foreign races equally. We do not discriminate against them. His Highness Jiao Yunlu smiled. Why do you think so? Dongbo Shuiying listened carefully. This is the primogenitor's order. Even we, the bloodline descendants, do not dare to disobey. Jiao Yunlu lowered his voice and said, "You should have heard that our bloodline cultivation system is because the countless life forms in our cosmos all originate from the same primogenitor. The primogenitor possesses unfathomably invincible power. In the future, when this cosmos epoch ends and we leave this cosmos, we will also join the primogenitor." Shuiying was originally drinking slowly, but at this moment he could not help but stop. Let me tell you a secret. Jiao Yunlu's voice became even lower. My clan's ancestor is in the 7-star oceanic sacred world. The 7-star oceanic sacred world was created by my clan's ancestor and another existence of the same level. Dongbo Shuiying's eyes narrowed in shock. 7-star oceanic sacred world? Isn't that where forefather Tianyu and the owner of Lakeheart Island are? In the end, the cultivators of his own universe would have to go to the 7-star oceanic sacred world to seek refuge with the old ancestor. The 7-star oceanic sacred world was actually created by the Devil Mountain cosmos primogenitor and another existence? In the 7-star oceanic sacred world, my clan's ancestor has an extremely high status. His Highness Jiao Yunlu said, there are countless who are willing to submit to the primogenitor. The primogenitor also treats the life forms of other cosmoses equally. Thus, Brother Dongbo, since you are so powerful, even if there are no void gods in your hometown, you should be able to survive. Our Demon Mountain cosmos has it. You can bring your people and follow us to the 7-star oceanic sacred world. However, the flow of time in our universe is very fast. When a universe epoch ends, only a relatively short period of time might have passed in other universes. Dongbo Shuiying nodded. The difference in the flow of time is huge. Ha ha ha. It's also because the primogenitor wants to give birth to more descendants, His Highness Jiao Yunlu said. Dongbo Shuiying sighed in his heart. This Demon Mountain cosmos really had a huge backer. In the future, when he went over to forefather Tianyu and the Lakeheart Island Master, he would be in the same sacred world as the experts of the Devil Mountain cosmos. He had to build a good relationship with them as the other party might be even stronger than forefather Tianyu. It's easy for our Devil Mountain cosmos to connect to other cosmos and form universe passageways. His Highness Jiao Yunlu said. By allowing different cultivation systems to clash, it will be more beneficial to our cultivation. But, the collision of different systems, the flow of time far exceeds that of other universes. Other than these, the primogenitor also left behind the primogenitor Devil Mountain, His Highness Jiao Yunlu said. He's here. Dongbua Shui Ying's heart skipped a beat. Even if the Red Fiend God Emperor did not come to kill him, he would wait until his cultivation was stronger. His original plan was to wait until his walker's hidden secret reached the 9th or 10th level before finding an opportunity to reveal his strength. Revealing it in advance wasn't a big deal. Coupled with his advantage in the laws and profound mysteries, he had some confidence. After coming to the Devil Mountain cosmos, other than the fact that he could increase the flow of time by 3,000 times, the other important thing was the legendary primogenitor Devil Mountain. As he chatted with those protectors, he naturally heard about the legendary primogenitor Devil Mountain. Dongbua Shuiying had long mentioned it to his teacher, Blood Blade. Naturally, he had some thoughts about the primogenitor Devil Mountain. The primogenitor Devil Mountain was left behind by the primogenitor. It is an extremely unique cultivation ground. Jiao Yunlu said. Cultivating there will allow your strength to grow even faster. You will understand once you go. I have never truly experienced it before. Saying this, Jiao Yunlu's eyes were filled with desire. Being the son of a void god, he similarly desired to enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain. But nobody dared to violate the rules set by the primogenitor. The primogenitor Devil Mountain is extremely mysterious. As for how mysterious it is, only those who enter it will know. It is split into a core layer, inner layer, and outer layer. The primogenitor has set a rule, that only the strongest ruler and those who have reached the void god realm can enter the core layer. His Highness Jiao Yunlu said. There is only a single ruler who can enter, and he is also the strongest. I'm afraid my chances are slim in this lifetime. According to hearsay, there are only 9 array cores in the inner layer. Every array core has a cavern dwelling and only one person can enter. The primogenitor has set a rule that only the strongest paragon and 8 rulers can enter the inner layer. The outer layer has 32 array bases and 32 cavern dwellings. The primogenitor has ordered that only 30 rulers and 2 paragons can enter. Jiao Yunlu helplessly said, thus only 39 rulers, 3 paragons and void gods can enter the entire primogenitor Devil Mountain. And our Devil Mountain cosmos has more than 200 rulers. There are also more than 100 rulers from other cosmoses. How difficult is it to enter the top 39? Jiao Yunlu shook his head. Dongbua Shuiying sighed. It was indeed difficult. There were too many rulers in the Devil Mountain cosmos. Including the other cosmoses, there were more than 300 rulers. The probability of entering the primogenitor Devil Mountain was about 10%. How many paragons are there? Dongbua Shuiying asked. Our Devil Mountain cosmos has more than 1,000 paragons. The other cosmoses have a few hundred paragons too. Ultimately, only 3 can enter. Jiao Yunlu sighed. Of these 3 paragons, 2 are from other races. Only 1 is from our Devil Mountain cosmos. Jiao Yunlu's eyes brightened. He looked at Dongbua Shuiying. Brother Dongbua, the reason why I'm telling you this is because even though the 3 paragons who enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain are extremely terrifying, only the top 2 have defeated rulers. The 3rd paragon can only fight to a draw with a ruler. You can defeat the Red Devil God Emperor. Jiao Yunlu said. Even though the Red Devil God Emperor isn't some formidable God Emperor and isn't qualified to enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain, he isn't weak. Since you can defeat him, you can definitely challenge the paragons within the primogenitor Devil Mountain. By then, entering the primogenitor Devil Mountain, TSK, I want to enter even in my dreams. The greatest glory for every cultivator from the Devil Mountain cosmos is to enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Dongbua Shuiying nodded. It wouldn't be easy to enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain. This was because there were already 3 paragons inside. If he wanted to enter, he would have to defeat one of them. One must know that. Of the 3 present, 2 had defeated hegemons in the past. For example, Monarch Green and Pang Yi from the Cultivator Cosmos. Monarch Green had never defeated a ruler when he was a paragon. At most he could fight to a draw with a ruler. As for Pang Yi, even though he had defeated a ruler when he was a paragon, that was a ruler who had concealed his strength. From this point of view, it would be extremely difficult for a paragon to defeat a ruler. These were the 3 most heaven-defying paragons from the Devil Mountain cosmos and the other cosmoses. They had comprehended many different cultivation systems and were chosen to become paragons. Furthermore, they had cultivated in the primogenitor Devil Mountain for a very long time. Their strength was unfathomable. Dongbo Shuang didn't have enough confidence. Originally, he wanted to cultivate the walker's hidden treasure to a higher level before entering. Who knew that the Red Devil God Emperor would appear? Let's give it a try. Even if we fail, we can always try again in the future. Dongbo Shuang had no intentions of retreating. After all, the war in his hometown could erupt at any time. The earlier he entered the primogenitor Devil Mountain, the better. His Highness Jiao Yunlu continued to speak. Actually, he didn't know much. After all, his strength was still far from being able to enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Alright, I've told you everything I know. Brother Dongbua, I won't be accompanying you any longer. Hurry up and cultivate. His Highness Jiao Yunlu stood up and sighed. This time, the Black Devil's sacred fruits were all protected by Brother Dongbua. I owe you a huge favor. Protecting your highness is what I should do. Dongbo Shuang also stood up. No. If you had rebelled or snatched the Black Devil's sacred fruits from me, I wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. His Highness Jiao Yunlu said. I will remember this favor. Now, I will go into seclusion to cultivate. Go. There's no need to care about me. Dongbo Shuang chuckled. He knew that Jiao Yunlu had long since wanted to cultivate. Jiao Yunlu chuckled. He immediately left and entered closed-door cultivation. Dongbo Shuang's eyes narrowed. He muttered in a low voice, Primogenitor Devil Mountain. Cultivator Cosmos, within the small courtyard of the Bloodshed God Palace. A white-robed teenager appeared. He was none other than the incarnation of Dongbo Shuang. Teacher. Dongbo Shuang looked at Bloodblade who had just walked out. Snow Eagle? Bloodblade asked. Is there any news? I might be heading to the primogenitor Devil Mountain soon. Dongbo Shuang said. Teacher, I'll definitely do my best to accomplish what you've asked me to do. Does teacher have any other instructions? Asterisk. Chapter 760. Just the two things I mentioned previously, the catalog and the blood essence of the thousand-eyed fire insect. Bloodblade said, these are things we urgently need. It will be great if you can complete one of them. If you can complete both of them, then we will definitely win this war. I understand. Dongbo Shuang nodded. His teacher and the others urgently needed these two precious items. He had asked Third Highness Jiao Yunlu previously, but Jiao Yunlu had never heard of them. Clearly they had to find more formidable existences. The Devil Mountain Cosmos had a huge influence and there were many rulers. The treasures that Bloodblade and the others could not find could be found in the Devil Mountain Cosmos. Then this disciple will take his leave. Dongbo Shuang said. You must be careful. We have the upper hand in the war against the Ancestor Mother religion. Working hard now will only increase our chances of victory. You must not risk your life. Bloodblade reminded, even though you have avatars and seem safe, the techniques of void gods are beyond your imagination. But the techniques of void gods are beyond your imagination. Furthermore, that primogenitor Devil Mountain has an extraordinary origin, and you have to follow their rules. I understand. Dongbo Shuang chuckled. He then bade farewell to his teacher and left. Seeing the incarnation of Dongbo Shuang dissipate, Bloodblade's eyes were filled with anticipation. The two things he asked Dongbo Shuang to do were extremely important. Snow Eagle mentioned before that it is hard to enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain. He is confident? Bloodblade thought, unless that Third Highness is helping him? His understanding of the primogenitor Devil Mountain came from Dongbo Shuang. Naturally, he knew even less. He did not understand how hard it was to enter. Dongbo Shuang was not in a rush to leave. Instead, he continued staying on that planet. His Highness Jiao Yunlu had mentioned that he would personally send Dongbo Shuang over after he finished his cultivation. As a foreign race, it was better for him to wait for His Highness Jiao Yunlu to send him over. He could also use this time to reflect on his battle with Red Devil God Emperor and learn from it. Hua, heavy rain poured down, covering the world with a curtain of rain. Ha. Laughter suddenly rang out, echoing throughout the entire planet. At the same time, a terrifying aura suddenly erupted. All the guards sensed the terrifying aura and Dongbo Shuang came out as well. All of them looked at His Highness Palace from afar. A figure could be seen floating in the air above the palace. It was His Highness Jiao Yunlu who wore a scarlet-scaled armor. Red chi waves were surging from his body, and his terrifying aura soared into the sky, causing the entire planet to tremble. Fortunately, there was a spirit formation protecting the planet, or else the entire planet would have been destroyed. Congratulations, Your Highness. Congratulations, Your Highness. Immediately a guard shouted. The other guards also hurried over. He became a sovereign? Dongwu Shuang was also somewhat astonished. Although it was very difficult to become a sovereign through the bloodline cultivation system, it was still relatively easier than the laws and mysteries system. At the very least, with the help of the Black Devil's sacred fruit, His Highness Jiao Yunliu's chances of awakening his bloodline had greatly increased. Now he had even successfully become a sovereign. How difficult was it to become a sovereign through the laws and mysteries system? His Tao of Mirage and Tao of Slaughter had already reached a bottleneck, but he still had no idea how to achieve perfect eternity. Although he was deeply moved, Dongwu Shuang still flew over and bowed to the excited His Highness Jiao Yunliu. Congratulations, Your Highness, on becoming a sovereign. His Highness Jiao Yunliu looked at Dongwu Shuang. His attitude towards the other guards had naturally changed. After all, the difference between a sovereign and a paragon was too great. However, Jiao Yunliu was still rather courteous towards Dongwu Shuang. This was because he felt that since this guard Dongwu was so monstrous, it would definitely not be a problem for him to become a sovereign. After becoming a sovereign, he would definitely be an incredible existence amongst the sovereigns. In the future, when Jiao Yunliu headed to the 7-star oceanic sacred world, he would definitely have to interact with him. Brother Dongwu, it's all thanks to you. If I didn't have the Black Devil's sacred fruit, I really don't know when I would be able to break through. His Highness Jiao Yunliu sighed. The Black Devil's sacred fruit is an external object. If you want to break through, other than external objects, you also need to rely on yourself. Dongwu Shuang said. Since Your Highness was able to break through, you must have accumulated a lot of experience. Jiao Yunliu laughed. That's right. He had been stifled for too long. For the sake of breaking through, he had tried to cultivate other systems. He had spent a lot of effort and accumulated a lot of experience. Now he had finally broken through. The difference in their levels of life was completely different. Previously, Dongwu Shuang could kill the Third Highness with ease. But now, if they really fought, it was hard to say if Dongwu Shuang would be able to defeat the Third Highness. Being able to defeat the Red Devil God Emperor did not mean that he could defeat the Third Highness, who had become a sovereign. I've said it before. After I go into seclusion, I will personally send you to the primogenitor Devil Mountain. His Highness Jiao Yunliu laughed. Although I don't have the qualifications to enter, I'm very familiar with the guards of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. I also know some of the basic rules. Thank you, Your Highness. Dongwu Shuang said. Haha, now that I've become a sovereign, I will cultivate for a few more days. I will also give it my all to enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Jiao Yunliu laughed. There are only 3 paragons. Back then, I didn't dare to think about it. However, there are 39 sovereigns in the primogenitor Devil Mountain. With my father's help, I will be able to cultivate for a few more days. Even with my father's help, you don't have full confidence. A hoarse voice rang out. Dongwu Shuang jumped in fright. Jiao Yunliu also turned his head in shock. The two of them saw a man standing in midair. This man's entire body was covered in dark red scales. However, the scale on his forehead was pale white. His silver eyes were ice cold, as though he was a lofty existence looking down on ants. Father. Jiao Yunliu hurriedly bowed. Monarch. All the protectors hurriedly bowed. Dongwu Shuang also did the same. None of them were fools. They understood that this person who suddenly appeared was one of the 3 great emperors with the highest status in the Devil Mountain cosmos. He was also the patriarch of the Jiao Yun clan, Great Emperor Jiao Yun. Monarch was a relatively ordinary title in the cultivator cosmos. But in the Devil Mountain cosmos, king referred to rulers. Monarch. Only void gods were worthy of such a title. You are still somewhat useful. Great Emperor Jiao Yun coldly said. Third Highness Jiao Yunliu revealed a look of joy when he heard that. It had been too long. It was rare for his father to praise him. This should be the 2nd time since he was born. You are a ruler and also my son. You must enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Great Emperor Jiao Yun coldly said. Don't be so useless. Yes. Jiao Yunliu obediently replied. Great Emperor Jiao Yun looked at Dongwu Shuang. That pair of cold and emotionless silver eyes caused Dongwu Shuang's heart to tighten. The aura of this Great Emperor Jiao Yun was slightly unique. It gave off a feeling of transcending the laws of the cosmos. Dongwu Shuang. Great Emperor Jiao Yun said, I know you. You defeated Red Devil. It is rare for a paragon to defeat a ruler. Dongwu Shuang smiled and lowered his head to listen obediently. He had no intention of making enemies in the Devil Mountain cosmos. Naturally, he had to obediently follow the rules. Third Highness Jiao Yunlu said from the side. Fortunately there is Brother Dongbua. If not for Brother Dongbua, my Black Devil sacred fruits would have been snatched away. Great Emperor Jiao Yin nodded. Your big brother is able to get the help of Red Devil because of his strength. You are able to get the help of Dongbua Shuang also because of your strength. Dongbua Shuang, your strength is sufficient to go to the primogenitor Devil Mountain and compete with the other 3 paragons. Are you willing to go? Of course I'm willing. Dongbua Shuang replied. Alright, let's go. After Great Emperor Jiao Yun finished speaking, he brought Dongbua Shuang and Third Highness Jiao Yunlu with him. With a swoosh, they disappeared without a trace. The other guards heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time they were filled with excitement and shock. They had finally met a great emperor in their lives. Chapter 761. In just an instant, Dongbua Shuang and the Third Highness arrived at the primogenitor Devil Mountain under the lead of Great Emperor Jiao Yun. We're here. Third Highness Jiao Yunlu looked ahead excitedly. Dongbua Shuang also looked ahead carefully. In the boundless starry sky, there was a huge mountain shrouded in black fog. The mountain was majestic and seemed to be the center of this world. No, more accurately, it was the center of the entire Devil Mountain cosmos. Around the primogenitor Devil Mountain, there were many asteroids revolving around it. Every one of these asteroids was glowing faintly. Clearly, there was an invisible array connecting all the asteroids in the surroundings. Let's go. Great Emperor Jiao Yun said coldly. He brought the 2 of them and instantly transformed into a beam of light, arcing through the sky and landing on one of the asteroids. There were some stone houses on the asteroids. At this moment, there was a gray-robed, black-scaled old man waiting respectfully on the surface of the asteroids. When Great Emperor Jiao Yun brought the 2 of them down, he immediately greeted respectfully, Monarch. Great Emperor Jiao Yun nodded, after which he turned to Dongbua Shuang. Dongbua Shuang, this is officially. He will make the arrangements for you to challenge the paragons of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Thank you, Monarch. Dongbua Shuang said. At the same time, he turned to the gray-robed, black-scaled old man and bowed slightly. I will have to trouble Ruler Yi. The gray-robed, black-scaled old man revealed a smile. However, his face was ugly and malevolent. Even when he smiled, it was somewhat frightening. When he smiled, he revealed a mouthful of sharp teeth. I heard that Paragon Dongbua was able to defeat rulers. I'm also very impressed. When you challenge the primogenitor Devil Mountain, I am only helping to guide you. Whether you can win or not will depend on your own strength, Paragon Dongbua. Father, Brother Dongbua has only been in our Devil Mountain cosmos for a short period of time. He doesn't have sufficient experience fighting against experts of the various cultivation systems. Third Highness Jiao Yun hurriedly said. He wanted his father to help Dongbua Shuang. Great Emperor Jiao Yun glanced at his son. He was cold and aloof. However, his 3 children were the rare ones that he valued. As for letting his children fight, it was because deep down in his bones, he believed that the weak were prey to the strong. It didn't mean that he didn't value his children. Dongbua Shuang, Great Emperor Jiao Yun looked coldly at Dongbua Shuang. Speak. What do you need my help with? Dongbua Shuang was taken aback. This is the only time. You'd better grab this opportunity. Great Emperor Jiao Yun coldly said. He didn't care about a heaven-defying paragon. After all, so what if the paragon was a ruler? From true god to void god, this was a huge threshold and this step was the hardest to break through. Moreover, Emperor Jiao Yun knew that once this epic ended, they would head to the 7-star oceanic sacred world to join the primogenitor. Some true gods like the Third Highness still wanted to befriend Dongbua Shuang. As for Great Emperor Jiao Yun and the others, their vision was even further. They were too lazy to care about those who had not stepped into the void god level. But for the sake of his son, he was willing to give Dongbua Shuang a chance. Dongbua Shuang could feel the coldness of the other party, though he did not care about it. He immediately said, "This junior has something that I seek, just that I haven't been able to find it." For his hometown cosmos. For the final battle, it would decide the fate of countless beings. So what if the other party was cold? Speak. Great Emperor Jiao Yun continued. This junior has always wanted 2 items. One is the legendary blood essence of the thousand-eyed fire insect, and the other is the myriad catalog. I don't seek for the complete myriad catalog. The 3rd volume is sufficient. Dongbua Shuang said. At the same time he looked at Great Emperor Jiao Yun. Great Emperor Jiao Yun frowned as he looked at Dongbua Shuang. He coldly said, "You are a paragon, And you want the blood essence of the thousand-eyed fire insect? Do you know what the thousand-eyed fire insect is? I don't. Dongbo Shuang shook his head. You dare to ask if you don't know? Great Emperor Jiao Yun sneered. The blood essence of the thousand-eyed fire insect was extremely precious. Even at his level, he viewed it with great importance. He had only seen records of it in the ancient records given to him by the primogenitor. Dongbo Shuang did not get angry. He listened obediently while sighing in his heart. It seemed like there was no hope of obtaining the blood essence of the thousand-eyed fire insect. He wondered why his master, Blood Blade, wanted it. It is impossible for you to obtain the blood essence of the thousand-eyed fire insect. However, I can give you the complete myriad catalog. Great Emperor Jiao Yun calmly said, someone will send the myriad catalog over very soon. You can wait here. Lu, or follow me. Yes, father. His Highness Jiao Yun Lu did not dare to disobey. He could only look at Dongbo Shuang and transmit a message. You will have to rely on yourself from now on. I am already very grateful to your Highness. Dongbo Shuang transmitted a message as well. He was very grateful. His teacher, the Bloodshed God Emperor, had entrusted him with these two matters, and judging from his teacher's tone at that time, they were extremely important. It was already not bad for him to complete one of them. After all, when he asked the Third Highness previously, the Third Highness had never heard of them. This void god, Great Emperor Jiao Yun, did know of these two items. However, it was clear that he did not have any hopes of obtaining the blood essence of the thousand-eyed fire insect. Nevertheless, he promised to give Shui Ying the complete copy of the myriad catalog. Many thanks, monarch. Dongbo Shui Ying respectfully expressed his gratitude. Great Emperor Jiao Yun brought the Third Highness along before disappearing in a stream of light. That ruler official chuckled, Paragon Dong Bo, I'll first tell you the simple rules if you wish to challenge the paragons within the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Ruler official please speak. Dongbo Shuang said. It's not that anyone can challenge. The three paragons within will accept the challenge. If that's the case, the three paragons within would not have the time to cultivate. They would have to deal with all sorts of challenges. Ruler official said. To challenge, you have to first defeat a puppet at the entrance of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Defeating the puppet would mean that you have the right to challenge. To date, there are only 11 paragons who have defeated a puppet. Ruler official smiled as he looked at Dongbo Shuang. It's still very difficult. After defeating the puppet, Paragon Dong Bo would have the right to challenge the second and third paragons of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Ruler official said. If you win, you would replace one of them. Their ranking would drop by 1, and the fourth would be expelled from the primogenitor Devil Mountain. If you win, you can continue to challenge the strongest paragon. Ruler official said. If you win, you would become the strongest paragon and enter the inner layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. If you lose a challenge, you would have to wait for 1,000,000 years to challenge again. Ruler official laughed. Do you understand the rules? Understood. Dongbo Shuang nodded. If you lost a challenge, you would have to wait for 1,000,000 years before you could challenge again. This was to prevent paragons from continuously challenging each other. 1,000,000 years wasn't a long time, but it wasn't short either. It wouldn't affect his cultivation too much. The myriad catalog should be sent over soon. How about this? You can rest here for a day and enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain tomorrow. What do you think? Ruler official asked. All right. Dongbo Shuang nodded. He had already waited for 30 million years. He wasn't in a hurry to rest for a day. Ruler official smiled faintly. He transformed into a beam of light and flew towards the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Clearly, he was someone who had the right to enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Dongbo Shuang turned and casually chose a stone house. There were arrays circulating within the stone house. It was clean and tidy. It was unknown which expert had left it behind. Dongbo Shuang sat down cross-legged and waited silently. Time passed. After about 2 hours, a pleasant voice came from outside. Paragon Dong Bo. Dongbo Shuang hurriedly walked out. A purple-scaled woman with a tail and a pretty face smiled. Paragon Dong Bo, I'm here on the orders of the Empyrean Emperor to deliver the myriad catalog. As she spoke, she took out a circular golden plate and handed it to Dongbo Shuang. Dongbo Shuang received it. He was delighted and said, Thank you, ruler. That great Emperor Jiao Yun only controlled rulers. It's a small matter. The woman smiled. She turned and transformed into a beam of light as she flew out of the meteorite, following which she teleported through spacetime and disappeared. Dongbo Shuang lowered his head and looked at the myriad catalog in his hands. He sensed the vast amount of information within. The information surged into his brain in large amounts. It only stopped after the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Although there was still a lot of information within the myriad catalog, he couldn't accept any more. There was a mysterious array restricting him. If he didn't break it, he wouldn't be able to continue reading. This isn't the laws and profound mysteries system. It's the witchcraft system that studies all things? Dongbo Shuang muttered to himself. Dongbo Shuang now understood many systems. In terms of profundity, he felt that the witchcraft system was the only one that could be compared to the laws and profound mysteries system. What does Master need this for? Dongbo Shuang pondered for a moment and didn't think too much about it. So, a figure descended from afar. It was the red-robed Dongbo Shuang. It was a new avatar that he had cultivated. With the help of his master's avatar art, Dongbo Shuang now had 3 bodies. The black-robed Dongbo Shuang passed the circular golden plate to the red-robed Dongbo Shuang. So, the red-robed Dongbo Shuang rapidly left. Following which, he executed the void evasion technique and rushed towards the cosmos passageway that he came from. He was prepared to return to his homeworld and give this treasure to his master, Blood Blade. Since it was important to the war, it was naturally better to send it over as soon as possible. Chapter 762. Within the cultivator cosmos, within the wooden courtyard of the Bloodshed God Palace. The red-robed Dongbo Shuang walked in from outside the courtyard. Blood Blade, who had long sensed his arrival, looked at his disciple. Snow Eagle, this avatar of yours rushed back from the Devil Mountain cosmos. Unless you have some gains? Amen. The red-robed Dongbo Shuang nodded. I was fortunate to meet one of the void gods from the Devil Mountain cosmos. Because of the Third Highness, I had to ask him for help. The blood essence of the thousand-eyed fire insect has no hope at all. But he did give me the complete copy of the myriad catalog. Saying that, he flipped his hand and brought out a circular golden plate to his teacher. The eyes of Blood Blade brightened. He looked at this circular golden plate with slight excitement. He extended his hand and sensed it before revealing a joyous look. Large amounts of information surged into his mind. Only after a few breaths of time did he regain his senses. Good. Blood Blade was always proud and aloof. At this moment he was filled with joy. He looked at the circular golden plate in his hand with a blazing gaze. He had desired for too long. There were 2 treasures he desired the most. One was the thousand-eyed fire bug's essence blood, and the other was the myriad catalog. This was because he knew that the Devil Mountain cosmos was much stronger and had an extraordinary background. They had conquered 8 cosmoses. They also had connections with several other cosmoses. That was why he asked his disciple for help. He was not too clear how precious the blood essence of the thousand-eyed fire insect was. After all, he had only discovered a simple record of it in the inheritance. But he understood much more about the myriad catalog. He was the #1 refiner in the cultivator cosmos and the #1 in a race. That was because he had obtained the 1st and 2nd volumes of the myriad catalog, and had extraordinary accomplishments. That's right. These 2 treasures were meant to increase his strength. Because after touching the threshold of the Void God realm, his strength had greatly increased. He could fight 1 against 5, injuring the 5 religious leaders of the Ancestor Mother religion. One could see how powerful he was now. Thus, the stronger he was, the greater the help he could provide. If he could break through to the Void God realm, then he could announce that he had won this war. Snow Eagle, I've wanted this all-creation catalog for too long. I never expected you to help me find it. Blood Blade smiled at Dongbo Shuang. Fortunately, the Temporal Island Lord had discovered the universe passageway. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to enter the Demon Mountain cosmos. Dongbo Shuang said. It's all luck. Without your strength, I wouldn't have been able to do all this. Blood Blade nodded. You have to be careful there. Are you heading to the primogenitor Devil Mountain now? Yes. Dongbo Shuang nodded. Be careful. Blood Blade reminded again. He didn't want his disciple to die in the Devil Mountain cosmos. Dongbo Shuang nodded his head. At the center of the Devil Mountain cosmos, within the primogenitor Devil Mountain. In the outer 32 cavern dwellings located at the 32 corners of the primogenitor Devil Mountain, there was a white-haired girl sitting by the entrance of one of the cavern dwellings drinking wine by herself. Her expression was gloomy, and her eyes were flashing with cold light. Dongbo Shuang? Where did this paragon come from? I have never heard of him before. He seems to be from some foreign cosmos, yet he could actually defeat Red Devil God Emperor? A paragon defeated a ruler? The white-haired girl muttered. Her voice was filled with coldness. Now that he wants to enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain, he will most likely challenge me very soon. She was ranked third amongst the 3 paragons of the primogenitor Devil Mountain, Paragon Snow Goddess. She was cold and arrogant, and she was powerful. For the sake of becoming stronger, she would not stoop to any means. She had paid a huge price to be able to enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain as she was ranked third. And now that Dongbo Shuang was about to arrive, it was as if dark clouds were looming over her, causing her to feel an unseen pressure. After all, Dongbo Shuang was different from those challengers in the past. He had defeated Red Devil God Emperor before. No, I have paid so much to enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain. This is my territory and I will not allow others to snatch it away. The white-haired girl was anxious and furious, yet she was helpless. Because the rules of the primogenitor Devil Mountain were strict, and nobody dared to play any tricks. Go and take a look. That Dongbo Shuang has entered the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Report to me the moment there are any movements. The white-haired girl looked at an old servant by her side. This servant was a puppet life form. Other than the void gods, the 39 rulers and the 3 paragons, there were no other living beings in the primogenitor Devil Mountain. They were all puppets. Yes, master. The old servant respectfully acknowledged. He immediately rushed to the entrance of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. The white-haired girl held onto her wine cup. She could not help but crush the wine cup in her hand into powder. She gritted her teeth. Nobody should think of snatching it away. Nobody. Dongbo Shuang left the meteorite under the lead of ruler official Yi. They flew towards the entrance of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. The 2 of them descended and landed at the entrance. There was a huge platform at the entrance. Deep within the platform was another entrance. Beside the entrance were 2 black characters, Devil Mountain. The pressure formed by these 2 huge characters caused Dongbo Shuang's heart to feel stifled. He muttered inwardly, could these 2 characters be left behind by the legendary primogenitor? Just these 2 characters could form such a pressure. How powerful was that person? Ho, another brat? 2 voices sounded at the same time. One could see 2 cavern dwellings on both sides of the entrance. A huge monstrous puppet walked out from one of the cavern dwellings. This monstrous puppet looked like a gorilla with 2 long arms. However, there were 2 huge curved horns on its head, and its entire body was refined from a strange metal. The one who walked out of the other cave dwelling was a seemingly ordinary old woman with a walking stick. Greetings, Mountain Protector. Ruler official Yi slightly bowed. Dongbo Shuang immediately bowed as well. So this is the paragon Dongbo Shuang you mentioned was preparing to challenge you? The old granny looked at Dongbo Shuang. Yes. Ruler official Yi replied. Let's go. The old granny and the monstrous puppet walked towards the side, with Dongbo Shuang and ruler official Yi following behind them. Not too far away from the entrance there was a lake. After the old granny and the monstrous puppet walked over, the old granny picked up her walking stick and stirred the water in the lake. With a casual wave, she caused a stream of water to fly up into the air, quickly transforming into a silvery white soldier. He landed on the ground, a confused look in his eyes. This is a newborn golem. It's rather stupid. The old granny said casually, although it's a sovereign golem, it isn't very proficient in combat. It's quite suitable for you paragons to test. A sovereign golem? Dongbo Shuang stared speechlessly at the lake. The lake was still without a single ripple. But a single stream of water was able to form a sovereign golem? What sort of lake was this? Be careful. Ruler official Yi said, although he's just formed, he was formed from the waters of this devil lake. In the entire primogenitor Devil Mountain. Based on what I know, this lake is the most unfathomably powerful. Even emperors aren't a match for it. No matter how immature it is, the little fellow it casually created with a stream of water is still extremely powerful. Understood. Dongbo Shuang nodded. Little kid. The old woman with the walking stick patted the silver white soldier's shoulder and pointed at Shuang. In a moment, listen to my instructions. When I tell you to act, you must use your full strength to kill him. At this moment, elsewhere on the primogenitor Devil Mountain, the white-haired woman's servants as well as some bored sovereigns, were all watching the battle from afar. They had all heard that a newly risen sovereign named Dongbo Shuang had defeated the Red Devil God Emperor. He had a high chance of entering the primogenitor Devil Mountain. He's Dongbo Shuang. I've never heard of him before. I wonder which universe he came from. Some of these sovereigns were sitting in groups of 2 or 3, drinking and chatting as they watched the battle. Chapter 763. The rulers who were leisurely watching the battle on the primogenitor Devil Mountain were suddenly startled when they saw what was happening below. Dongbo Shuang grabbed the arms of the silvery white soldier. The soldier struggled with all his might. Wung wung wung, a terrifying energy rippled out in the surroundings, yet Dongbo Shuang's palms did not budge at all. He firmly grabbed onto the silvery white soldier. Ha! Dongbo Shuang exerted his strength. He grabbed onto the arms of the other party and pulled them apart. Hong, the entire body of the silvery white soldier shattered. It turned into a stream of water and flew back into that calm lake. That lake did not have a single ripple. He won just like that? He actually relied on his strength to defeat the water puppet soldier? Just a single move? Some rulers even forgot to swallow the wine in their mouths. This scene was too shocking. Because they were clear of the strength of the water puppet soldier. In the past, only 11 paragons had defeated the water puppet soldier. What level of strength did he have to rely on just his strength to defeat it? In terms of strength, this brat should be stronger than me. A black-skinned old man with a long tail shook his head and sighed. We rulers aren't good at cultivating our bodies. We can't even compare to this brat. Just based on his strength he has reached the ruler realm. If he has other formidable techniques he would be even more amazing. I think he might be able to threaten that number 1 paragon. He indeed has a chance of threatening the number 1 paragon. Lai Yang. The rulers gave their evaluations. They were all rulers who could enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain and were ranked in the top 39. All of them had extraordinary techniques. Even if their bodies were weaker than Dongbo Shuang, they were still able to look down on Dongbo Shuang. Just like the cultivator Cosmos, Primal Master, Purgatory Ruler, and Pang Yi all cultivated the laws and profound mysteries system. Their bodies might not be as strong as the current Dongbo Shuang, but their combat power was much higher. You've won. The old woman guarding the mountain looked at Shui Ying in astonishment. Your strength isn't small at all. Dongbo Shuang chuckled. In terms of strength, he was comparable to the new religious leader from the ancestor mother religion. If he could not suppress a water puppet soldier with his strength, then this trial would be too difficult. Let me ask you, which supremacy do you want to challenge? The mountain guardian asked. You are now qualified to challenge the 2nd and 3rd supremacy. The 3rd venerable. Dongbo Shuang said. Regardless of whether it was the 2nd reverend or the 3rd reverend, if he won he would only be able to enter the outer layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. In that case he might as well challenge the 3rd sovereign who had a greater chance of winning. After all, the first 2 sovereigns had defeated sovereigns before, but the 3rd sovereign had never done so. Alright, the 3rd exalted will be here soon. The old woman guarding the mountain nodded. She looked at the burly monstrous puppet beside her. The monstrous puppet nodded and suddenly stomped on the ground. He soared into the sky and flew towards one of the corners of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. On the primogenitor Devil Mountain, the white-haired girl was currently sitting there drinking wine uneasily. She did not even go to watch the battle personally. I have spent so much effort to enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain, and now, a paragon who can defeat sovereigns has appeared? The white-haired girl, Paragon Snow Goddess, was filled with unease. Hong. The monstrous puppet descended abruptly. It looked at the white-haired girl and said with a majestic voice, Snow Goddess, there is a paragon challenging you. Go down and accept the challenge. The white-haired girl's body trembled slightly. Her eyes turned cold. Finally, it has come. It won't be that easy to defeat me. South, an old servant flew over and reported, Master, that Dongbo Shuang has won. The white-haired girl glanced at the servant. She did not say anything because she understood that if she lost, this puppet would no longer be her servant. Instead, it would become the servant of that Dongbo Shuang. Thinking of this, the white-haired girl's eyes turned even colder. She had to win this battle. Go. The monstrous puppet shouted. Go. The white-haired girl stood up. Together with the monstrous puppet, they transformed into streams of light and flew towards the entrance of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Eh? Dongbo Shuang raised his head and saw 2 figures descending from the sky. Other than the monstrous puppet, the other was a white-haired girl who emitted an ice-cold aura. The old granny who was guarding the mountain smiled faintly as she smashed her walking stick on the ground. Rumble, suddenly an ancient battle platform appeared on the ground. The battle platform was engraved with densely packed vein patterns. Light flowed within the veined patterns, and a huge black magic array appeared in the air around it. The black array was filled with layers of energy, completely enveloping the entire battle stage. The rules are simple, the old granny said. The two of you will fight for a period of time. If a victor cannot be decided, the array of the battle stage will be filled with danger. The one who dies first will be the loser. The one who survives will be the victor. Do you understand? The old granny's turbid eyes swept across Dongbo Shuiying and the white-haired girl. Understood. Dongbo Shuiying nodded. The white-haired girl also acknowledged. Very good. Let's begin on the battle stage. The old granny instructed. The white-haired girl flew towards the battle stage. Although there were layers of arrays around the battle stage, they didn't obstruct her. She landed on the stage. Dongbo Shuiying also flew over. He looked at the opponent in front of him seriously. Previously, Jiao Yunlu and ruler Yi Qin had told him about the three paragons in the primogenitor Devil Mountain. The one in front of him was called Paragon Snow Goddess. She was extremely difficult to deal with and could fight against rulers. Strictly speaking, she should be comparable to Monarch Green, who had yet to break through. Perhaps she was slightly weaker. After all, the battles in the Cultivator universe were more mysterious and unpredictable. Their average combat strength was slightly higher. I heard that you can defeat rulers? The white-haired girl, Paragon Snow Goddess voice reverberated throughout the battle stage. Can you defeat me? Her voice was still reverberating in the air. Ice crystals started to form on the surface of the white-haired girl's body. Each ice crystal was in the shape of a dodecagon. Under the illumination of the primogenitor Devil Mountain and the starry sky, the ice crystals started to emit colorful light. Countless ice crystals formed into a huge statue. The white-haired girl had completely transformed into a statue. Originally, she was only about 2 meters tall. Now, with the countless ice crystals, she was almost 3 meters tall. She stood there motionlessly. Dongbo Shuiying was stunned. What does this mean? She turned into a statue and didn't move at all? Boom. Dongbo Shuiying wielded his silver spear and tried to brandish it. The spear arced through the sky. The spear's shaft was slightly curved. A ruler's strength was imbued into the spear's shaft. The strength flowed along the spear's shaft to the spearhead. Pung! Suddenly the spear struck the statue. This ice crystal statue was directly sent flying, smashing into the black array surrounding the battle stage. At this moment, the black array actually blocked the ice statue. The ice statue bounced back onto the battle stage, rolling for a long distance before coming to a stop. Dongbo Shuiying looked at this scene in astonishment. Allowing him to attack her? Aha, this Paragon Snow Goddess is really shameless. The rulers watching the battle on the primogenitor Devil Mountain couldn't help but laugh. She knows that she can't win against Dongbo Shuiying in terms of offense. She is afraid that she might lose her life. Hence, from the start she used all her strength to defend herself. Her choice is reasonable. Her body's defense is extremely strong. As long as Dongbo Shuiying can't kill her, the battle stage will soon be filled with all sorts of dangers. She is also very good at defending herself. As long as Dongbo Shuiying dies first, she will win. The rulers laughed as they discussed. This was indeed a strategy that had a higher chance of winning. However, it was also very embarrassing. After all, who wouldn't fight and just take a beating? Wouldn't he resist even if he peed on his body? However, Dongbo Shuiying wouldn't do such a thing. Brother Dongbo. A figure rushed over from afar. It was His Highness Jiao Yunlu. He hurriedly shouted, "What's going on? Why aren't you guys fighting?" He had rushed over when he heard the news. Nothing much. It's just that I didn't expect the third paragon of the primogenitor Devil Mountain to be so. Dongbo Shuiying looked at the ice crystal statue in front of him. He didn't know what to say. However, no matter what, he still had to give it his all to obtain victory. The final battle in his home cosmos wasn't far away. Naturally, the stronger he was, the better. He had to grab hold of the opportunity in the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Chapter 764. His Highness Jiao Yunlu was dressed in a luxurious golden robe. When he arrived, ruler official Yi greeted politely, "Your Highness." He was stronger than the Third Highness, but now that the Third Highness had stepped into the ruler realm and had the backing of Emperor Jiao Yun, he naturally couldn't be treated as an ordinary ruler. His Highness Jiao Yunlu nodded and laughed. At the same time he observed the battle carefully. He said in surprise, "Paragon Snow Goddess has turned into a statue. Is she going to take it head-on?" From the looks of it, Paragon Snow Goddess is indeed planning to do so. Ruler official Yi smiled. However, when he smiled, his old face was truly frightening. Paragon Snow Goddess has been cultivating in the primogenitor Devil Mountain for a period of time. Her strength has increased. Now that she has turned into a statue, she is doing her best to protect herself. It will be extremely difficult to injure her. If Dongbua Shuiying can't break through, he will likely lose. On the stage, Dongbua Shuiying was already executing his spear arts, attacking the statue. Boom boom boom, the statue was sent flying everywhere, smashing into the stage and the surrounding black spirit design. However, the ice statue was not damaged at all. The 12-sided ice crystals on its surface were still reflecting light. Likely to lose? You are wrong about that. His Highness Jiao Yunlu watched and shook his head. You didn't see the battle between Brother Dongbua and the Red Devil God Emperor. Although the outside world is saying that Brother Dongbua defeated the Red Devil God Emperor, there are very few who know the details of the battle. Oh. Ruler official Yi looked at Jiao Yunlu in surprise. Back then, the Red Devil God Emperor also used an extremely powerful defensive technique. But what happened in the end? Jiao Yunlu chuckled. He could still remember clearly how Red Devil God Emperor had become much stronger after using his ultimate move. The surface of his body was covered with a layer of frost armor, and his defense was extremely formidable. In the end, he was still heavily injured by Brother Dongbo's spear. Brother Dongbua's attacks are extremely terrifying. Is that so? Ruler official Yi was in disbelief. From his point of view, Paragon Snow Goddess's defense was already very strong. What he didn't know was that the Red Devil God Emperor's survivability was even stronger. Is here. His Highness Jiao Yunlu's eyes lit up. He saw a layer of black light appear on Dongbua Shuiying's spear. It was this layer of black light that heavily injured the Red Devil God Emperor. Wah! The spearhead pierced out furiously, but its trajectory was strange. There was even a circle of blood-colored ripples around the spearhead. Clearly, other than the layer of terminus energy, Dongbua Shuiying had also fused the Tao of Slaughter and Tao of Wave into his spear arts. Ever since he comprehended the slaughter domain, Dongbua Shuiying had come up with many ways to combine these two Taos. Pooh! The spear pierced into the ice sculpture. The terminus energy revolved around the surface of the spear, causing its sharpness to explosively increase. It forcefully pierced through the sculpture, and after piercing into its interior, a terrifying blood-colored ripple spread outwards. Peng! The entire sculpture exploded and countless fragments were destroyed in mid-air. Only a few of them remained, forming the white-haired woman, Paragon Snow Goddess. Paragon Snow Goddess looked at Dongbua Shuiying with a look of disbelief and helplessness. Facing Dongbua Shuiying's onslaught, she hurriedly transmitted a message to the surrounding void. I admit defeat. It was too late to speak slowly. She directly used the power within her body to transmit a voice through the void. Who? Dongbua Shuiying's spear suddenly stopped. A terrifying stream of air streaked across Paragon Snow Goddess's body like a sharp blade. If it was an ordinary stage 4 world deity, their body would have long since been pulverized. However, Paragon Snow Goddess was still in existence who could fight against rulers. She might not be able to withstand Dongbua Shuiying's all-out attack that contained the terminus energy, but just the stream of air alone was not enough to injure her in the slightest. Admirable. I never thought that you would actually be able to break through my undying sage sculpture, Paragon Snow Goddess said coldly. I'm afraid that with your strength, you might even be able to threaten that monster Lai Yang. I really wonder how the battle between the two of you will be like. After saying that, Paragon Snow Goddess transformed into a stream of light and flew away. Because she had lost. Naturally, she did not have the qualifications to enter the primogenitor Devil Mountain again. Dongbua Shuiying had replaced her, becoming the third paragon. Haha, Brother Dongbua, congratulations. His Highness Jiao Yunlu laughed. I haven't even entered the primogenitor Devil Mountain, but you've already entered before me. Dongbua Shuiying walked down the stage and looked at His Highness Jiao Yunlu. He laughed. Your Highness, please don't make fun of me. Your Highness is already a ruler and I'm just a paragon. It's not easy to take this step. It might not be easy for other paragons, but it's different for you, His Highness Jiao Yunlu said. Dongbua Shuiying chatted with His Highness Jiao Yunlu for a while before he entered the primogenitor Devil Mountain under the guidance of an old puppet servant. Jiao Yunlu was temporarily unable to enter. Primogenitor Devil Mountain. Dongbua Shuiying walked on this ancient Devil Mountain, which was surrounded by black fog. For some unknown reason, he felt much more relaxed as he walked on the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Even his bones felt slightly itchy. It was extremely comfortable, causing Dongbua Shuiying to involuntarily smile. He understood that this was definitely because of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Otherwise, how could someone at his level be so easily affected by the environment? The old puppet servant led the way. He pointed to an indistinct cave dwelling at the end of the rugged path. Master, the cave dwelling is just ahead. That's my cave dwelling? Dongbua Shuiying nodded. Yes, it's Master's cave dwelling. Without Master's permission, no one can barge in. Furthermore, the cave dwelling is located at the base of the primogenitor Devil Mountain's array. Cultivating there will be great benefits. The old puppet servant said. Master will know once you enter. Amen. Very soon they arrived at the cave dwelling. This ancient cave dwelling was rather plain, but it still occupied a few square kilometers. After all, it was a place where paragons cultivated. It was extremely luxurious, and it was normal to treat a land of 1 trillion square kilometers as one's backyard. He pushed the door open. Creak. The door was made of wood. The wood was pitch black and it was impossible to tell what material it was made of. Just as he stepped over the door, a green aura that could be seen by the naked eye gushed towards him. Taking a deep breath, his entire body turned cold and his mind became blank. In an instant, his comprehension and thinking speed increased tremendously. It was as though he had consumed a rare treasure. Even rulers desired such a precious cultivation ground. Naturally, it would be of great help to paragons. The higher one's potential was, the faster they would be able to cultivate in a good environment. Great. Dongbua Shuiying couldn't help but praise. He had been in the cultivator cosmos for so long, but he had never entered such a precious cultivation ground. There are some precious cultivation manuals stored on the primogenitor Devil Mountain. The puppet servant said. They were left behind by the primogenitor and are extremely precious. You can learn them, but you cannot take them away from the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Oh. Dongbua Shuiying was astonished. Master, feel free to experience the benefits of this cave dwelling. The puppet servant said. If there's nothing else, this old servant shall take his leave. Dongbua Shuiying asked, are the inner and core layers of the primogenitor Devil Mountain much better? They are completely different and mystical. The puppet servant said. The inner layer far surpasses the outer layer, and the core layer is even more unimaginable. Dongbua Shuiying nodded. There's one more thing. I wish to challenge the number 1 paragon. Challenge the number 1 paragon? The puppet servant was startled. All right. Master, please wait for a moment. I will go and pass the message. The puppet servant hurriedly left. Dongbua Shuiying started to inspect the cave dwelling in detail. With a single look, he discovered the wonders of the cave dwelling. The different areas within the cave dwelling had different auras, and they were suitable for experts who cultivated in different systems. Dongbua Shuiying found different areas suitable for the Tao of Slaughter, Tao of Ripples, and Tao of Mirage. As for the Voidwalker system, it didn't have any requirements for the environment. After a short while, the puppet servant returned and came to report. Master. The puppet servant said respectfully. Have you decided on the time? Dongbua Shuiying asked. The number 1 paragon Lai Yang is currently in seclusion and is unable to accept the challenge. The puppet servant said. Dongbua Shuiying was astonished. He is in seclusion and is unable to accept the challenge? If he is in seclusion, I won't be able to challenge him? There is a huge difference between the inner and outer layers of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. In the future, when Master enters, you will know that the seclusion in the inner layer is a special form of cultivation. During the process of cultivation, one is unable to accept the challenge. However, once the seclusion ends, Paragon Lai Yang will no longer be able to escape. The puppet servant said. How long will it take? Dongbua Shuiying asked. I heard that Paragon Lai Yang has already been in seclusion for over 500,000 years. I estimate that he might come out at any time or at most 10 million years. The puppet servant said. So long? Dongbua Shuiying was slightly helpless. Let's wait. The time flow in the Devil Mountain cosmos was much faster than his hometown. Even 10 million years was equivalent to a few thousand years in his hometown. The war shouldn't be that fast. He could make use of this time to cultivate properly. You can leave first. Dongbua Shuiying instructed. Yes, Master can instruct me anytime. The puppet servant walked out of the cave dwelling. The door of the cave dwelling closed with a creak. Dongbua Shuiying also started his cultivation on the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Chapter 765. Although time passed, there were no changes to the primogenitor Devil Mountain. The surroundings were always shrouded in black fog, and it was always cold and desolate. There were only tens of experts cultivating here, and the rest were the puppets and guards who were there to serve them. At the peak of the mountain outside the cave, Dongbua Shuang was sitting there flipping through a golden book. The book was made of a strange metal, and there were many ancient words engraved on it. Although he didn't understand these words, they were able to transmit information into his mind. After so many years, he had already memorized all the information in this book. However, Dongbua Shuang still brought this book to his cave and flipped through it frequently. There were many precious books in the Primogenitor Devil Mountain, and he could read them in his cave. However, it was forbidden to bring them out of the Primogenitor Devil Mountain. His understanding of ripples has reached a level that I can only look up to. If he were the stars in the sky, I would only be a mortal looking up at the starry sky from the ground. Every time Dongbua Shuang flipped through it, he couldn't help but feel a sense of worship. These were all precious books left behind by the Primogenitor Devil Mountain. The one in front of him was only a single copy, and it lacked the front part and the back part. Dongbua Shuang didn't even know the name of the book. He only knew from the information in the book that it was written by an existence called the Skywave Island Lord. Without these books, it would be much more difficult for me to create my absolute art. Dongbua Shuang shook his head. He was ambitious. Very ambitious. For example, the Heavenly Emperor of Great Destruction had created his own absolute art based on the second half of the Blood Demon scripture. Previously, Dongbua Shuang had also created his own absolute art based on the Cosmos Emissary System's Slaughter domain. He had combined the Tao of Slaughter and Tao of Ripples to create his own Slaughter domain. These were all created by referring to the thoughts of the seniors. Because the Tao of Ripples and Tao of Slaughter were extremely suitable for combat, Dongbua Shuang had always wanted to combine these two Taos to create an absolute art for combat. The Slaughter domain was after all a domain. What Dongbua Shuang needed was an absolute art for combat, and it was even suitable for spear arts. But there were no similar records, no seniors who had done this. Maybe there was, but it couldn't be found in the ancient records of the Primogenitor Devil Mountain. After all, it was too difficult to find someone who was proficient in both the Tao of Massacre and the Tao of Ripples. Because there was no reference, there was only a dense fog in front of him. How should he proceed forward? This required Dongbua Shuang to create it himself. He needed his understanding towards slaughter and energy fluctuations to reach a deeper or broader level. Fortunately, he was in the Primogenitor Devil Mountain, and there were large amounts of precious manuals for him to browse through. This broadened his horizons, allowing him to see the various possibilities of cultivation. With the nourishment from all sorts of ancient manuals, the foundation of the Tao of Slaughter and Tao of Ripples, in addition to the fact that he was cultivating in the Primogenitor Devil Mountain, his efficiency was also extremely high. In addition to his perception, he had finally created the first chapter of the Absolute Art Wind Ripple Path. The reason why it was only the first chapter was because he had yet to reach the eternal realm in both his Taos. According to his thoughts, this Absolute Art Wind Ripple Path could be continuously improved. With just the first chapter, Dongbua Shuang had already given it his all. With just this one chapter, he was able to fight against a ruler. Who? From afar, a puppet lady walked over. With a few flashes of her figure, she was already near Dongbua Shuang. Paragon Dongbua. The puppet lady said respectfully, "I am here on the orders of my master, Paragon Lai Yang. I am here to inform Paragon Dongbua of the battle tomorrow." Paragon Lai Yang? Dongbua Shuang's eyes lit up. He is finally here. After 6 million years, Paragon Lai Yang has finally ended his seclusion. Alright, let's have the battle tomorrow then. Dongbua Shuang revealed a smile. The puppet lady bowed respectfully, turned and left. Dongbua Shuang stood up and watched the puppet lady leave. His eyes were filled with anticipation. You made me wait for 6 million years. My strength is much stronger than when I first entered the Primogenitor Devil Mountain. I heard that Lai Yang had defeated a ruler before. I wonder if he is a match for me. Although his cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds in the Primogenitor Devil Mountain, he had never battled before. On the second day, creak, the wooden door was pushed open. Dongbua Shuang walked out from the cave abode. His eyes were calm as he walked along the rugged mountain path, leaving behind blurry afterimages. The old puppet servant followed behind him respectfully. Dongbua, I heard that you were going to battle Lai Yang? In another cave abode far away, a woman wearing golden armor and covered in scarlet scales laughed. Your Highness. Dongbua Shuang smiled. I am about to head to the battle arena. The woman in front of him was the second of the 3 children of Jiao Yin Emperor, Jiao Yin Can. She was also the strongest and had left her brothers far behind. She had long entered the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Even though the third prince, Jiao Yinlu, had become a ruler, the difference in strength between him and his sister was still very obvious. The strongest paragon is about to be decided. Let's go together. Jiao Yuncan took a step forward and arrived beside Dongbo Shuiying. Alright, let's go together. Dongbo Shuiying and Jiao Yuncan walked side by side. That Lai Yang is quite strong. Back then, he became the strongest paragon the moment he appeared and entered the inner layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Even I have not entered it before. Are you confident that you can defeat him? Jiao Yuncan had a beautiful appearance. Her eyebrows were like sharp swords. She usually wore golden armor when she cultivated. From this, one could tell her temperament. Dongbo Shuiying laughed. Regardless of whether I am confident or not, this battle is unavoidable. Moreover, I also want to see how strong he is. You seem quite confident. Jiao Yuncan laughed. They continued walking. Along the way there were other rulers who followed them. After all, this was the battle to decide the strongest paragon. Except for the second and third ranked paragons who had been defeated and then challenged a more boring battle. It was very rare for a newcomer to fight the strongest venerable one. On the contrary, such newcomers had a higher chance of defeating a paragon. Because of their sudden appearance and unfathomable strength, there was hope. As for those who had been defeated a few times, the chances of them challenging were slim. Dongbo, this battle is not going to be easy. Dongbo Shuiying, that Lai Yang has been the strongest paragon for too long. Defeat him. When Dongbo Shuiying arrived at the dueling platform, some of the rulers who had arrived earlier shouted loudly. Most of them were rulers who cultivated in the outer layer. Naturally, they were on Dongbo Shuiying's side. Over the years, Dongbo Shuiying had frequently borrowed manuals. Hence, he was acquainted with some of the rulers who read the manuals. Everyone had a good impression of this good-tempered young paragon. The dueling platform was dark green in color. It was located in the outer layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. A moment after Shuiying arrived, the other main character of this event arrived as well. Paragon Lai Yang. Dongbo Shuiying looked into the distance. 2 figures walked out from the deeper inner layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain, which was shrouded in fog. The one walking behind was the puppet woman, while the one walking in front was a man who was wearing a robe but had bare arms. The man's skin was yellowish-brown and glossy. He had silver hair which was tied into many thin braids. At a glance there were probably tens of braids. He was not wearing any shoes and was walking over barefoot. However, his entire body was surging with a terrifying aura. As he walked over, a saber was sheathed on his back. His eyes were sharp and filled with pressure. Dongbo, he looks similar to you. Are you from the same cosmos? Her Highness Jiao Yuncan, who was sitting by the side, shouted. No. Paragon Lai Yang, who was walking over, took the initiative to speak. His eyes were sharp as he stared at Dongbo Shuiying. The corners of his mouth curled upwards. I know all the paragons in my hometown cosmos. He is definitely not. Furthermore, all the paragons in our cosmos have braids. He doesn't. With that, he took a step forward and leaped onto the dueling platform. He stared at Dongbo Shuiying and said, Come, Paragon Dongbo. Let me see your strength. All right. Dongbo Shuiying also leaped onto the dueling platform. When the two of them stood on the dueling platform, the countless runes on the surface of the ancient dark green dueling platform started to glow. Dense black spirit designs started to appear in mid-air, completely enveloping the dueling platform. Chapter 766. On the ancient battle platform, Dongbo Shuiying and Supremacy Lai Yang faced each other from a distance. Dongbo Shuiying extended his right hand, and a silver spear appeared in his hand. At the same time, boom, with Dongbo Shuiying as the epicenter, a blood-colored wave surged outwards. That rumbling blood-colored wave instantly pounced towards Supremacy Lai Yang. Because this was a domain-type technique, the entire battle platform was affected in all directions. Supremacy Lai Yang could not even dodge and was instantly drowned. Massacre Domain. Currently, Dongbo Shuiying's Tao of Massacre and Tao of Ripple had reached their limits. He was only one step away from eternal perfection. Of course, that step was like a heavenly moat. With the increase in his cultivation realm, coupled with his self-created absolute art wind ripple path, Dongbo Shuiying had accumulated even more. His Massacre Domain had also been perfected, and its power had become even more terrifying. And within the blood-colored wave, Supremacy Lai Yang's expression changed slightly. He could feel waves of hidden ripples continuously seeping into his body, shaking every part of his body, as though they were about to shatter his body. Layers of ripples were like a spider web that constantly wrapped around and restricted him. What a terrifying domain. It can actually injure my body. And the longer I stay in this domain, the more my injuries will worsen, and the more restrictions I will have to face. Supremacy Lai Yang immediately treated Dongbo Shuiying as the most terrifying supremacy he had ever faced. I have to end this battle quickly. I cannot drag this out. For example, the Red Devil God Emperor still had a move that could suppress the Massacre Domain. But firstly, the Massacre Domain had become even stronger. Secondly, Supremacy Lai Yang was indeed not proficient in domain-type techniques. However, he had his own way of fighting. Supremacy Lai Yang suddenly roared angrily. Boom! The aura on the surface of his body suddenly exploded, and even his clothes inflated. A layer of skin that could be seen with the naked eye appeared on his originally glossy skin. As his skin expanded, the power within surged, and a layer of skin appeared on the surface. Even his eyes had a transparent layer, and the aura on his body had exploded. Whoosh! In an instant he pulled out the blade on his back and leapt towards Dongbo Shuiying. In the blink of an eye, his ferocious blade was already in front of Dongbo Shuiying. Clang! Dongbo Shuiying was originally standing there, but the spear in his hands was like a python, instantly shooting upwards to block the saber. The surging energy in his body was completely infused into this spear. Supremacy Lai Yang only felt as though the heavens and earth were collapsing. A vast and mighty power was transmitted through the spear. Furthermore, this power was accompanied by a strange wave after wave, causing him to feel so uncomfortable that the blood in his body started to boil. He could not help but be sent flying backwards as he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His strength is actually stronger than mine? Supremacy Lai Yang could not believe it. In terms of strength, he was stronger than ordinary rulers. He was actually at a disadvantage this time? Vomiting blood? Paragon Lai Yang might have been sent flying by Shui Ying's spear, but the braids of his silver hair abruptly expanded, frantically wrapping around Shui Ying. Although Dongbo Shui Ying's spear was powerful, it was surrounded by a total of 93 slender braids. Furthermore, all of them were strangely twisting and moving at an extremely fast speed. He was unable to defend in time as these silver braids rapidly wrapped around his body. Each braid wrapped around him, completely binding Dongbo Shuiying. This is going to be troublesome. The spectating rulers were also holding their breaths. This was because the battle between both parties was too fast and too intense. It was obvious that the victor would be decided within a short period of time. Boom! At the instant he was bound by the silver braids, Dongbo Shuiying exerted strength in both his arms. Chi, all the silver braids tightened and trembled. However, they managed to resist against Dongbo Shuiying's strength. Supremacy Lai Yang, who was sent flying, stopped. His braids had already expanded to a length of over 50 kilometers, covering the sky and completely binding Dongbo Shuiying. He looked at Dongbo Shuiying in shock and said, "Such strong strength. I was almost unable to bind him. He actually couldn't break free?" Dongbo Shuiying was also very shocked. His cultivation speed in the primogenitor Devil Mountain was still very fast. 6 million years was equivalent to 30 million years of cultivation in the past. He had already pushed his walker's hidden secret to the 8th level. He was already very shocked that his spear had only caused his opponent to vomit blood. But now, his hair was actually binding him? He couldn't even break free with his strength? Break. A layer of black light suddenly appeared on the surface of Dongbo Shuiying's body. This layer of black light circulated on the surface of his body. Every strand of light was as sharp as a blade, able to cut and destroy everything. This was the most destructive and destructive technique of the Void Walkers, the termination energy. As the termination energy covered his body, Dongbo Shuiying looked like a demonic god that had walked out from the darkness. His entire body, including his black hair, was circulating with the terrifying termination energy. He exerted strength once again. Boom! The many silver braids that bound him tightened once again. But this time, the incomparably sharp termination energy on the surface of Shui Ying's body caused the silver braids to break apart with a ping-ping-ping sound. This caused the expression of Supremacy Lai Yang, who was originally prepared to take advantage of the situation, to change. A large number of broken braids rapidly flew back. He stared at Dongbo Shuiying. In the past, he was known for his domineering style of battle. Who would have thought that he would be at a disadvantage in a head-on clash today? Although it sounded slow, in reality, Dongbua Shuiying had only trembled twice. The second time he had used the termination energy to break apart these silver braids. Kill. Supremacy Lai Yang roared angrily as he wielded his saber and attacked again. This time, in close combat, his silver braids floated to his left and right, all of them restless. Hoo! A saber light flashed as it slashed towards Dongbua Shuiying. At the same time, the silver braids also launched a sneak attack. Facing so many braids and a saber at the same time, Dongbua Shuiying's expression changed. Wind Ripple Path, Double Wave Slash. Dongbua Shuiying immediately executed the absolute art that he had created after so many years, Wind Ripple Path. This was an absolute art that was used for battle. Hua! The surface of Dongbua Shuiying's body suddenly shot out many black Terminus soldiers. The Terminus soldiers could envelop weapons and other external objects to be used in battle. Could also be used directly in battle. On the surface of the many black Terminus soldiers, there were two strange blood-colored ripples revolving around them. They were like yin and yang fish. When the two ripples came into contact with each other, a terrifying destructive force would be produced. Pupiu. A large number of black Terminus soldiers shot out simultaneously, causing Supremacy Lai Yang to be unprepared. He could only grit his teeth and trust in his body as he used his body to withstand the attacks. Die. His silver braids continued to pounce towards Dongbua Shuiying. Even if he was injured, he wanted to finish off Dongbua Shuiying in one blow. However, the many black Terminus soldiers were like fish as they tunneled into Supremacy Lai Yang's body. Yes, the Terminus soldiers that contained the profound mystery of Wind Ripple Path, Double Ripple Slash, were extremely terrifying. Supremacy Lai Yang's body was not any weaker than Dongbua Shuiying when he first entered the primogenitor Devil Mountain. However, he still could not withstand it and was directly pierced through. The Terminus soldiers began to destroy his body. The densely packed bloody holes on his body caused Supremacy Lai Yang's expression to change drastically. Even his attacking movements were affected. After all, his injuries were too severe. Moreover, large amounts of Terminus soldiers were still destroying his body. Fortunately, his body was strong. If it was a weaker ruler, his body would have been smashed into pieces. Dongbua Shuiying's spear had also arrived. All the strength in his body was channeled into the spear. The Terminus soldiers circulated within the spear. Two blood-colored ripples continuously intersected at the tip of the spear. They continuously flowed forward and pounced towards Supremacy Lai Yang. Currently, Supremacy Lai Yang's body was so heavily injured that his movements were deformed. The saber in his hand did not have the confidence to block this attack. A large number of silver braids rapidly wrapped around the spear. Cheech. Although the silver braids were wrapped around the spear, it still forcefully pierced into Supremacy Lai Yang's body. With a violent jolt, a huge hole appeared in his chest. One could even see large amounts of Terminus soldiers circulating within his body. They had not been completely depleted. The ripples of the massacre domain continued to permeate his body. This caused Supremacy Lai Yang's injuries to worsen. I admit defeat. Supremacy Lai Yang opened his mouth. His mouth was filled with fresh blood. The surroundings turned silent. The massacre domain immediately dissipated. Dongbua Shuiying, who was about to attack once again, stopped and retracted his spear. Some of the remaining Terminus soldiers also flew back rapidly. Supremacy Lai Yang looked at Dongbua Shuiying. Without the destruction of the Terminus soldiers, the wounds on his body were gradually recovering. His originally long braids were also rapidly shortening and returning to normal. He looked at Dongbua Shuiying and nodded. I admit my defeat. I actually lost in a direct battle. You are stronger than me. You're also very strong. Dongbua Shuiying said. His opponent was indeed very strong. If not for the 6 million years of cultivation in the primogenitor Devil Mountain and the creation of the Wind Ripple Path, he would not have been able to forcefully break through those silver braids. He would have had to hide in the Mirage World. At that time, he would have to make use of the Mirage World and the Void Evasion to launch a sneak attack. Given the strength of his opponent's body and the large amount of braids, it was hard to say if he could win if he launched a sneak attack. It was just that. With the 6 million years of cultivation, he had improved in all aspects. Even if he did not use the Mirage World or the Void Evasion, he would be able to suppress his opponent and win directly. Impressive. Congratulations Supremacy Dongbua for becoming the strongest supremacy of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Haha, Supremacy Dongbua and Supremacy Lai Yang's battle is really valiant. The spectating rulers also started to comment. Such a ferocious battle was something that most new rulers would not be able to handle. Dongbo Shuiying and Supremacy Lai Yang admired each other very much. This was because both of them had their own fortuitous encounters. Dongbo Shuiying knew that if he did not have the Voidwalker inheritance, he would not have had any hope of winning. Supremacy Lai Yang also sighed, I had many fortuitous encounters and cultivated in the inner layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain for a long time. Yet I still lost. Dongbo Shuiying bade farewell to some rulers. Under the guidance of a new puppet servant, the puppet lady who was originally Supremacy Lai Yang's servant, he headed towards the inner layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Inner layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Master, there are a total of 9 cave abodes in the inner layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. They are located at the 9 hubs of the entire primogenitor Devil Mountain. The puppet lady walked through the black fog and entered the depths of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. There are 8 rulers and 1 supremacy in each of the 9 cave abodes. Previously there were a few rulers who went to watch the battle. Dongbo Shuiying nodded. Look. The puppet lady pointed into the distance. In the distance, there was a place surrounded by colorful flowing lights. In mid-air, there was a luxurious cave abode that was at least 50 kilometers wide. That was a cultivation cave abode, and also one of the 9 hubs of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. That is Master's cave abode, the place where you will cultivate in the future. The puppet lady said. Dongbo Shuiying walked over. His gaze swept across and he saw that in other directions, there were also colorful lights and floating cave abodes. He understood that these were the cave abodes of the other inner layer. Who? He directly flew up and headed towards the cave abode. The entrance of the cave abode was wide open. When Dongbo Shuiying flew closer, he could hear a melodious voice ringing in his ears, ringing in his soul. Wuji La. An illusory voice rang in his soul. Dongbo Shuiying's eyes gradually turned blank. He closed his eyes and revealed a smile on his face. He had fallen into a deep sleep. It wasn't just this body of his. On a desolate planet in the Devil Mountain cosmos, the red-robed Dongbo Shuiying who was cultivating in his cave abode fell onto the grass and fell into a deep sleep. In the cultivator cosmos Xia people's world, within the Crimson Rock Mountain world. Dongbo Shuiying, who was originally chatting with his wife Jianghu, suddenly closed his eyes and revealed a smile. Then he collapsed onto the ground. Snow Eagle. Jianghu was startled as her expression changed. Snow Eagle, what happened to you? Wake up, wake up. Primogenitor Devil Mountain. Dongbo Shuiying, who had fallen into a deep sleep, still had a smile on his face. His body was still subconsciously flying towards the entrance of the cave abode. Haha, this Paragon Dongbo has also started his dream cultivation. In the other 8 cave abodes in the inner layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain, a few rulers were watching from afar. They also saw the scene of Dongbo Shuiying falling into a deep sleep. This is a huge opportunity that can only be found in the inner layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Dream cultivation is something that one cannot even beg for. Once one starts cultivating in a dream, one cannot stop it. He can only wake up after the cultivation ends. I wonder how long he will cultivate for this time. This Paragon Dongbo looks very young from the aura of his soul. His level of comprehension is obviously very high. Moreover, this is his first time cultivating in a dream. He must have cultivated for a very long time. In my opinion, he will need at least 500 million years. 500 million years? In my opinion, he will need at least 1 billion years. In any case, the longer he cultivates, the greater the rewards. These rulers in the inner layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain had all experienced dream cultivation many times. They were rather familiar with it. Previously, when Paragon Lai Yang was unable to accept the challenge, he had gone into seclusion to cultivate in his dream. Chapter 767. Jianghu felt dazed. In her heart, Dongbo Shuiying, whose strength was unfathomable and was one of the 3 ancestors, had actually fallen to the ground in the material world? The laws of the material world were extremely protective of those living within. Even experts like Blood Blade and the Temporal Island Lord could only kill stage 3 world deities by relying on the karma of the oath. How strong was Dongbo Shuiying? He should be absolutely safe in the material world. Snow Eagle, wake up, wake up. Jianghu tried to use a strand of world deity energy to enter Dongbo Shuiying's body to investigate. Chi. The moment she touched Dongbo Shuiying's skin, she suffered an invisible rejection. Even in a deep slumber, the natural might of his fleshly body was not something Jianghu's energy could penetrate. Mother, what's wrong? What's wrong with father? The Crimson Dust Island of Crimson Rock Mountain was only so big. Dong Bo Yu's avatar, who was cultivating on a mountain peak, could see his father and mother lying on the ground in the distance. He was also in a daze and immediately teleported over. Jing Qiu, however, did not care about her son. She looked anxiously at her husband. So, she carried Dongbo Shuiying and immediately rushed to the nearest house, placing her husband on the bed. At this time, the artifact spirit Crimson Rock, Dongbo Qingyao and Dongbo Jade were all panicking outside the house. What's wrong with Master? The artifact spirit Crimson Rock did not dare believe it. At Master's realm and in the material world at that, how could he fall into a deep slumber? No matter how we shout at him, he won't wake up? This shouldn't be. He should be absolutely safe. Dongbo Qingyao was filled with anxiety as well. Dongbo Jade was also nervous and worried. It was precisely because he should be absolutely safe that he was still in a deep slumber that the situation was becoming more and more serious. Clearly what had caused Dongbo Shuiying to fall had already surpassed the level of Blood Blade and the Abyss Primogenitor. Within the house, Jing Qiu looked at her husband who was sleeping soundly in front of the bed. She grew increasingly anxious. Your Majesty Blood Blade. Yu Jing Qiu immediately shouted. This time she didn't isolate her karmic connection. Outside the room, Dongbo Jade, Dongbo Qingyao and Crimson Rock were all nervous. They understood that this was a request for the Blood Blade to act. Oh, Yu Jing Qiu? What is it? Blood Blade was currently very busy. One avatar was executing the Void Twin Extreme Array to force the Ancestor Mother religion to appear. The other two avatars were researching the myriad catalog that Dongbo Shuiying brought back from the Devil Mountain cosmos. Feeling his understanding of the myriad existences improving, Blood Blade was naturally in a good mood. If an ordinary cultivator dared to call God Emperor by his name, it would be an affront to God Emperor. However, Yu Jing Qiu was Dongbo Shuiying's wife, and Blood Blade's tone was not bad. The Snow Eagle has fallen into a deep slumber and cannot be awakened. I beseech your Majesty the God Emperor to act and save the Snow Eagle, Jing Qiu said. What? I'm coming over right now. Blood Blade was startled too. Very soon, an avatar directly descended into the material realm, arriving at the Crimson Rock Mountain world. The treasure spirit Crimson Rock did not obstruct him. The descending avatar of Blood Blade was wearing a loose white robe. Because it was merely an incarnation, his strength was suppressed by the material realm, and he was naturally weak. Nevertheless, his horizons and realm were still present. Your Majesty. Jing Qiu, Dongbo Yu, Dongbo Qingyao, and the treasure spirit Crimson Rock respectfully welcomed him. Amen. Blood Blade glanced at his disciple's wife and children. He then turned his gaze to the white-robed young man lying on the bed. He could not help but reveal a strand of anxiety. He took a step forward and arrived in front of the bed. What's going on? Blood Blade looked at his disciple. He then extended his hand and tapped on the forehead of Dongbo Shuiying. An unseen energy began seeping in. Although he was suppressed by the material realm, his techniques were still profound and powerful. Just like how Qihua Laozu had helped Dongbo Shuiying save Jing Qiu. Chi, his fleshly body, which had reached the 8th stage of the Walker's hidden secret, possessed a terrifying might. It instantly extinguished the probing of Blood Blade. Blood Blade frowned. He then tried other techniques. He tried many different techniques. In the end, Blood Blade's eyes shot out beams of light that enveloped Dongbo Shuiying. Only then did the beams of light enter the body. This disciple of mine, what a powerful fleshly body. Amongst sovereigns, I'm afraid that not even half of them have bodies comparable to this disciple of mine. I didn't even know that his body was this powerful. Blood Blade was inwardly shocked. He then carefully examined Dongbo Shuiying's soul. Within his sea of consciousness, Dongbo Shuiying's true deity heart was also in a deep slumber. Blood Blade then tried to awaken it. However, the moment he touched Dongbo Shuiying's true deity heart, a formless ripple spread out and affected Blood Blade's consciousness. Wang. Blood Blade felt his true deity heart tremble. Regardless of whether it was his doppelganger that was controlling the Void Twin Extreme Arrays or his other two bodies, all of them lost their consciousness for a moment. Blood Blade's doppelganger instantly dissipated. What's going on? Blood Blade's doppelganger descended once more. He looked at Dongbo Shuiying in shock. What did Snow Eagle do to him? Just a little shockwave caused me to lose my consciousness for a moment. If I continued to be enveloped by that shockwave, I would probably fall into a deep slumber. Blood Blade was very clear that the shockwave he received was already so terrifying. If Dongbua Shuiying was truly affected by it, it would definitely be even more terrifying. Your Majesty? Jing Qiu, Dongbua Yu, Dongbua Qingyao and Crimson Rock were all watching nervously. Very troublesome. Blood Blade frowned. His expression was filled with killing intent. Let's see if the others can do anything. Soon. Blood Blade summoned the others who could possibly save Dongbua Shuiying. They were the Purgatory Ruler, the Primal Master, and Pang Yi. Pang Yi had created a new cultivation technique. He was unique, and his attainments in the soul aspect were extremely profound. The Primal Master was the most ancient ruler. His methods were second only to God Emperor. And the Purgatory Ruler was similarly proficient in the soul aspect. The Purgatory Great Commander, under him displayed the Purgatory reincarnation which was imparted to him by the ruler. Blood Blade, Pang Yi, Primal Master and Purgatory Ruler. The four of them should be the strongest in the soul aspect. What happened to Dongbua Shuiying? Primal Master entered the house and looked at the sleeping Dongbua Shuiying with shock. He could fall into a deep slumber even in the material realm. What trouble did he encounter? Pang Yi was startled too. Purgatory Ruler asked, "Is it the Devil Mountain Cosmos?" Blood Blade nodded anxiously. Snow Eagle went to the Devil Mountain Cosmos and even to the Primogenitor Devil Mountain, bringing back the myriad catalog for me. That Primogenitor Devil Mountain has an extraordinary origin. It was left behind by the terrifying existence who created the Devil Mountain Cosmos. Now that Snow Eagle has fallen into a deep slumber, it is either the three void gods acting or the Primogenitor Devil God himself who is in danger. I should not have let him take the risk. Blood Blade felt slightly guilty. He had obtained a huge benefit by obtaining the myriad catalog, yet his disciple had fallen into a deep slumber. Let us take a look. Pang Yi and the other two went over to check. The moment they did so, they were startled by how strong Dongbua Shuiying's fleshy body was. But they were ultimately rulers of the laws and profound mystery system, and specialized in the soul aspect. All of them could check on Dongbua Shuiying's soul. But every single one of them had just checked on Dongbua Shuiying's soul when they were affected by an unseen ripple. Their true bodies and avatars had lost their consciousness for a moment, and their incarnations had dissipated. After condensing their incarnations once again, they were unwilling to give up and tried a few more times. In the end, they could only admit that they could not awaken Dongbua Shuiying. This has far surpassed our realm. It isn't something we can awaken. Purgatory Ruler calmly said, "We can only rely on Dongbua Shuiying's luck. We can't even withstand the remnant ripple. How can we save him?" Pang Yi shook his head. "Let's see his luck," Primal Master said. Blood Blade fell silent. He looked at his disciple lying on the bed, then sighed. There was no way to wake him up. It was hard to tell whether he would live or die. In a state of deep sleep, one's life would be at the mercy of others. Jing Qiu, Dongbua Yu, Dongbua Qingyao, leave the Snow Eagle's body here. Don't bring it out of the material plane. If you need anything you can come find me." After saying that, Blood Blade's body vanished. The other three rulers shook their heads slightly, then left as well. Jing Qiu, Dongbua Yu, Dongbua Qingyao and the others who had been harboring some hope, now felt despair. Even the rulers could not save him. What could they do? Mother. Dongbua Yu, Dongbua Qingyao and the others looked at Jing Qiu. Jing Qiu was somewhat hesitant as well, but she still said, "Let's wait. Perhaps your father will awaken soon." The siblings waited as well. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Jing Qiu and the others continued to wait. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years. Dongbua Shuiying continued to sleep. Chapter 768. Xia People's World, Crimson Rock Mountain World, Crimson Dust Island. Jing Qiu was sitting on a chair beside the bed, flipping through a book. From time to time, she would turn her head to look at the white-clothed youth lying on the bed beside her. 82,000 years. After sleeping for so long, Jing Qiu was already used to it. She only believed in one thing: Snow Eagle will not die in a short period of time. It is very likely that his life is not in danger. He will definitely wake up. However, she knew that this was just her wishful thinking. After all, it was impossible to guess what her husband had experienced in the distant Devil Mountain Cosmos, the Primogenitor Devil Mountain. Sister-in-law. A red-skinned man with red hair walked in from outside the house. It was Paragon Huocheng. This was one of his incarnations. He and Dongbua Shuiying were sworn brothers, and he was also Dongbua Qingyao's master. During this period of time, his incarnation had been staying on Red Dust Island. Jing Qiu immediately stood up. Big brother Huocheng. Sit down, I just want to see my brother. Paragon Huocheng walked to the side and sat down as well. He looked at the sleeping Dongbo Shuang. Such a peerless character. In this universe epic, there were only 2 stage 4 world deities who could open their Dao. Dongbo Shui Ying's degree of demon-like talent far surpassed Bamboo Mountain Prefecture Master. His future was boundless, but now he was sleeping here. Brother Dongbo, I've heard that those who enter other universes usually have some gains and are very careful. I've never heard of anyone suffering such a huge setback. Paragon Huocheng shook his head. He took the flask of wine by the side and poured it into his mouth. After drinking a mouthful, he muttered, "You should hurry up and wake up. We don't know when the war with the ancestor mother religion will erupt. Unless you plan to sleep through the entire war? If you really did that, then the war would have ended by the time you woke up. I'm afraid that even the venerables of our cultivator cosmos would admire you. In the past, when we were fighting with the paragons from the ancestor mother religion, even if we did not participate in the final battle, isn't it a little too disrespectful for us to sleep away the war?" Paragon Huocheng continued nagging. When he was imprisoned in the Destruction Grotto Heaven for a long time, he had the habit of talking to himself. Jing Qiu sat at the side and listened quietly. Suddenly, both of their expressions changed. Paragon Huocheng also stopped halfway through his sentence. "The war has begun?" Jing Qiu was surprised. "It has begun," Paragon Huocheng said solemnly. They were all notified to move to the Lake Heart Island ruins. Pang Yi was the leader of the army of destruction on the island in the center of the lake. He could bring everyone to the island directly. There was no need to fly slowly through the huge water ball surrounding the island. Jing Qiu, Dongbo Qingyao, and the others were all notified. The entire deity world and abyss were rapidly relocating. With Pang Yi's help, the Lake Heart Island historical remnant was extremely safe. And the temporary Eden treasure for everyone to stay in would be provided by the Bloodshed God Emperor. They were migrating in large numbers. The important ones would be moved first, and the rest would be moved gradually. The war between the rulers and the ancestor mother religion had also erupted. The accumulated strength of the 2 cosmos clans began to be displayed at this moment. They had no way out. Ever since the war broke out, he had always visited Dongbo Shui Ying's blood blade, but he didn't have the time to do so anymore. The God world and the Dark Abyss had long since been at war with each other. The material realm was still safe. The Crimson Dust Island and the Crimson Rock Mountain world was still peaceful. No matter how intense the war outside was, it would not affect this place. The war is too crazy. I've heard that there is a starfield that has nearly half turned into nothingness. Ai, there are countless beings in the deity world and abyss, but how many can be moved into the Lake Heart Island historical remnant? Dongbo Qingyao and Dongbo Yu were chatting and sighing. They were sighing over the deaths of so many beings. The beings in the material realm were still safe, but the deity world and abyss had suffered a calamity. Both sides were risking their lives. The rulers did not care about their lives, and Bloodblade had died more than once. He deliberately set up a trap and even used his own death to ambush the ancestor mother religion. The ancestor mother religion was not to be trifled with. Their cosmos had finally collapsed. Clearly they had experienced too many epics, leaving behind many treasures. At this moment they did not hold back at all. What? Bloody ruler Nile is actually a traitor? Oh God, this. Being the children of Dongbo Shuiying, Dongbo Qingyao and Dongbo Yu were more well informed. They understood some information about the war, but when they heard that bloody ruler Nile was a traitor, they were still startled. News came one after another. Dongbo Yu, Dongbo Qingyao and Jing Qiu frequently received news. But their most important relative, Dongbo Shuiying, was still sleeping on his bed. Devil Mountain Cosmos, inner layer of primogenitor Devil Mountain. In one of the 9 floating cavern dwellings, the cavern dwelling door was closed. The black-robed Dongbo Shuiying was lying on a stone bed. His body was surrounded by many colorful lights. Not far away from him, the puppet girl was sitting cross-legged. She was silently guarding him. So tired. I've been cultivating and battling all this time. When will it end? I'm too tired. I've already become a ruler. Why haven't I reached the end? Why do I still have to cultivate? Why do I still have to fight? I can't hold on any longer. I'm too tired. A consciousness that had been asleep for too long was really tired. It was extremely tired. It rejected the world of dreams. The intense rejection caused his consciousness to gradually leave this world. It was as though he had crawled out from the darkest depths. His consciousness gradually awakened. and his originally obscured memories began to surface in his soul. The black-robed Dongbu Shuiying, who was sleeping on the stone bed, gradually opened his eyes. His eyes were a little dazed, just like when he was young. He would lose his memories for a period of time after waking up, and even forget who he was. However, the memories of his dreams and the memories of reality began to fuse. As they fused, he gradually woke up. I am Dongbu Shuiying. Dongbu Shuiying had really woken up. He remembered. He had defeated Supremacy Lai Yang and reached the inner layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Originally, he was flying towards his own cavern dwelling. Suddenly, he heard a beautiful sound and then he fell asleep. He had entered the world of dreams? Congratulations, Master, congratulations, Master. It has been 650 million years since Master first cultivated in dreams. You are ranked first amongst the paragons in this universe epic. Including the rulers, Master is ranked third. The puppet girl stood up, her face filled with pride and excitement. Within a hidden grotto heaven treasure world on a desolate planet in the Devil Mountain cosmos, the red-robed Dongbu Shuiying was sleeping soundly on the grass. Under the care of the equipment spirit, not a single speck of dust could be seen on his body. At this moment he slowly opened his eyes. Xia People's World, Crimson Rock Mountain World, Crimson Dust Island. Within the house, Jingqiu sat alone on a chair flipping through a book. Occasionally she would glance at Dongbu Shuiying beside her. The surroundings were quiet. As a stage 4 world deity who could fight against powerful existences, Jingqiu was extremely sensitive to her surroundings. She was holding onto a book when she suddenly felt something. She turned her head in disbelief, only to see the eyelashes of the white-robed Dongbu Shuiying trembling. Snow Eagle. Jingqiu immediately placed down the book. She looked at Dongbu Shuiying nervously and excitedly. The white-robed Dongbu Shuiying, who was lying on the bed, slowly opened his eyes. There was a hint of confusion in his gaze. Snow Eagle, Snow Eagle. Jingqiu's eyes were filled with tears as she shouted out. The eyes of the white-robed Dongbu Shuiying gradually became clear. Seeing the tears in his wife's eyes, he extended his hand and gently wiped them away. Jingqiu, I've slept for too long this time. I've made you worry. It's nothing. Jingqiu was crying and laughing at the same time. Oh right, the war with the ancestor mother religion hasn't started, right? The white-robed Dongbu Shuiying asked. End of this chapter. End of this chapter. Next chapter, ruler, asterisk asterisk. Chapter 769. The white-robed Dongbu Shuiying was in a daze as he listened to the narration of his wife. His wife was only a stage 4 world deity. Due to her unique identity, she was able to understand some of the information regarding the war. She only knew that the war started 82,000 years after he fell asleep, and it had been 100,000 years since then. The 100,000 years of war was still ongoing. Bloody ruler Nile had died after his identity was revealed. Currently, the cultivator cosmos held a huge advantage, but they were temporarily unable to exterminate the ancestor mother religion. When I woke up, the war had already been going on for 100,000 years. Dongbu Shuiying extended his senses. Bloody ruler Nile's true body and avatar have indeed been exterminated. Fortunately, the other rulers are still alive. Teacher. Dongbu Shuiying transmitted a karmic transmission. Snow Eagle? Blood Blade was startled and delighted when he received the transmission. Before the war, he had come to visit his disciple several times. After the war, even though he was worried about his disciple, he had spent most of his energy dealing with the ancestor mother religion. Are you all right? Blood Blade asked. I'm fine. My slumber did not harm me at all. Instead, it helped me a lot. Dongbu Shuiying said, How is the war now? I might have to delay for a day or two before joining the war. It is slightly troublesome, but we hold the absolute advantage. It is not easy to exterminate them. The foundation of the ancestor mother religion is deeper than ours. It would be good if you could join the war, but 100,000 years have passed. There is no need to rush for a day or two. You should settle your own matters first. Blood Blade instructed. All right. Dongbu Shuiying felt relieved. He did indeed need some time to prepare. Within the inner layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain, the floating cavern-dwelling door opened. The black-robed Dongbu Shuiying flew out with that puppet girl following behind him. A dream of 650 million years. Dongbu Shuiying muttered. He landed on the mountain path. Dream cultivation? It has helped me a lot, but to me it has been too long. How long have I been cultivating since I was born? Dongbu Shuiying sighed. The days of dream cultivation were terrifying. He lived alone on a void land. He had forgotten who he was and his memories were completely obscured. On that piece of land in the void he was the only one. He had a residence, a library, and all the books in the library were things that he had read before. For example, the cultivation techniques of the laws and profound mystery system, the luminous sun, extreme annihilation mysterious body, and many other absolute arts. There were even records of the walker's hidden secret. There were also books that he had read on the primogenitor Devil Mountain. As long as he remembered it, everything would appear in the void continent. He had no memories and he was forced to cultivate and fight when he came to the void continent as his enemy. Cultivation, battle, never stopping. Because he had no memories, he was like a blank piece of paper, unaffected by the previous events. In the face of death, he continued to cultivate and improve himself. Even though he had lost his memories, he instinctively felt that he liked the system of laws and profound mysteries the most. Using this system as his foundation, he was still able to open up the Tao of Mirage, Tao of Slaughter, Tao of Ripple, because these were the easiest for him. As for the other systems, they were obviously much more taxing. He had also cultivated Walker's hidden secret. He cultivated along the way. Although he cultivated in the dream world, he would still walk a similar path due to the influence of the real world. However, comprehending the laws and profound mysteries, comprehending the combat techniques, would never be the same. After cultivating in the dream world for 650 million years, I actually managed to cultivate the walker's hidden secret to the 11th level and become a ruler. Dongbo Shuang exclaimed. The walker's hidden secret had a total of 60 levels. Every 10 levels represented a major realm. Hence, even though it might be difficult to cultivate from the first level to the 10th level, it was still possible to succeed if one were to slowly cultivate and accumulate experience. However, to break through the bottleneck and enter the 11th level from the 10th level was simply too difficult. It was just like how one's comprehension of laws and profound mysteries was advancing from the limits of the Paragon realm to the ruler realm. Even though it was just a single step, it was like crossing a heavenly moat. It could be said that the difficulty of breaking through from the 10th level to the 11th level was much higher than cultivating from the first level to the 10th level. After all, the latter was merely progressing deeper into the same realm. As for the former, it was a major realm leap. Ruler. Moreover, I'm a ruler of the Void Walker lineage. Dongbo Shuang sighed. Even though he had reached that realm in the dream world, his body was still the same as before he fell asleep in the real world. There were no changes to his soul either. After all, that was the dream world. My laws and profound mystery system has also improved. I've even created the 3rd volume of the Wind Ripple Path. However, the Tao of Void, Tao of Slaughter, and Tao of Ripple seem to be slightly different from what I've comprehended in the real world. Dongbo Shuiying's heart stirred. Large amounts of laws and profound mysteries started clashing against each other. His expression changed as he stopped thinking. Because of his dream world cultivation, even though these 3 Taos were only bottlenecks in reality, he had some insights on how to reach eternal perfection. Moreover, he had comprehended these 3 Taos in the real world. There were still some differences between them. As long as he clashed with them, fused them together, and comprehended them slightly, he might very well step into the ruler realm. There's no hurry to break through. I'll return to my hometown first. Dongbo Shuang thought. Primogenitor Devil Mountain's inner layer. Dongbo Shuang looked at the floating caves far away. I just arrived at the Primogenitor Devil Mountain's inner layer. I have to leave now. There was no way he could stay here. Because the moment he started cultivating, the Primogenitor Devil Mountain would sense that he had stepped into the ruler realm and would expel him. After all, he was no longer a paragon and could no longer stay in this cave. Want to enter the Primogenitor Devil Mountain again? According to the rules of the rulers, only the top 39 rulers could enter the outer layer. Only the 9 strongest rulers could enter the inner layer. Only the number 1 ruler could enter the core. Shuang was self-aware. If he were to cultivate the walker's hidden secret, to the 19th or 20th level, he would be able to perfect the laws and profound mysteries system eternally. He might be able to become one of the top few rulers or even the number 1 ruler. As for now, he would be lucky if he could even enter the outer layer of the Primogenitor Devil Mountain. After all, there were over 300 rulers in the Devil Mountain cosmos and the other cosmoses he had conquered. Only 10% of the rulers could enter the top 39. Out of these 39, the weakest was definitely a peak ruler. I've already made a breakthrough. Dongbo Shuiying turned to look at the puppet lady beside him. I'm about to step into the ruler realm, so I can't stay here any longer. The puppet lady was stunned. Step into the ruler realm? Paragon Lai Yang had cultivated here for so long and still hadn't managed to do so. Yet this new master of his was about to break through to the ruler realm in his first dream cultivation? Leave this cave to the other paragons. Dongbu Shuang smiled and turned to leave. On that day the news spread throughout the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Soon the Devil Mountain cosmos and the surrounding cosmoses also spread. The strongest paragon, Dongbu Shuang, who suddenly rose up and entered the inner layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain, had broken through to the ruler realm and left the primogenitor Devil Mountain after cultivating for 600 million years. In the starry sky, Dongbu Shuang and Third Highness Jiao Yinlu met. I haven't even entered the primogenitor Devil Mountain and you're already out? Third Highness Jiao Yinlu asked. I'm about to step into the ruler realm. Dongbu Shuang chuckled. My hometown is currently in a war and I have to return. Before I leave, I have a matter that I have to trouble your highness with. You and I are friends. If you have anything to say, just say it. Jiao Yinlu said. Dongbu Shuang said, the moment I become a ruler, I'll no longer be able to come here through the cosmos passage. By then, some of my loved ones and disciples might come here to cultivate. I'll need your help then. They might just be world deities and are too weak. Without the help of an expert, I'm afraid I'll meet with many troubles in the Devil Mountain cosmos. Rest assured, it's just a small matter. Get your people to send a message to me the moment they arrive. I'll definitely arrange things properly. His Highness Jiao Yinlu said. What identity did he have? He was a ruler and the child of a void god. It was absolutely easy for him to arrange things. You won't be coming in the future? His Highness Jiao Yinlu asked. Dongbu Shuang chuckled. In the future we'll meet again in the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World. Alright, 7-star Oceanic Sacred World. His Highness Jiao Yinlu said. We'll meet again then. After bidding farewell to His Highness Jiao Yinlu, Dongbu Shuang immediately began his journey back. The Cosmos Passage was located at the exit of the Devil Mountain Cosmos. Dongbu Shuang had even deliberately set up a mirage array to conceal it. Go. The black-robed Dongbu Shuang and red-robed Dongbu Shuang both looked at this Devil Mountain Cosmos. The help the Devil Mountain Cosmos could give him would end here. Even though the attraction of the primogenitor Devil Mountain was huge, the dream cultivation within the inner layer would only help him the most the first time. As for the more mysterious core layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain, he had to become the #1 ruler before he could enter. Shuang did not know how long he would have to cultivate there. As long as he spent a day or two fusing and breaking through, he should be able to stand at the forefront amongst the rulers in his hometown. After all, he was a void walker who had broken through to the ruler realm. He was far from what ordinary rulers could compare with. Before I break through, I have to make a trip to the starting ground. Dongbu Shuang thought. The black-robed Dongbu Shuang and red-robed Dongbu Shuang flew side by side into the Cosmos Passage, returning to the Cultivator Cosmos. The new chapter, the Ruler chapter, began. Today was the last chapter ***. Chapter 770. Crimson Rock Mountain World, Crimson Dust Island. After chatting with his wife and children for a while, the white-robed Dongbu Shuang went into closed-door cultivation. The black-robed Dongbu Shuang and red-robed Dongbu Shuang descended into the material plane, arriving at Crimson Dust Island to meet up with the main body. In truth, there was no difference between one's main body and one's clone. Both of them shared the same soul and physical body. It was just that he was able to maintain his clone for now. In the future he would have to fuse his main body and clone together to achieve perfection. The three figures met. White-robed Dongbu Shuang turned his hand and took out the starting ground talisman and handed it to black-robed Dongbu Shuang. Let's go, Zhang Xian said as he took the token. In the blink of an eye, the scene in front of the black-robed Dongbu Shuang changed. He had arrived at the starting ground which he had been to before. The feeling of a mortal. The black-clothed Dongbu Shuang revealed a smile. His vision, hearing and all other aspects were greatly reduced, making him look like a mortal. My current strength is comparable to a hegemon's, but under the laws of the starting ground, I'm still like a mortal. Dongbu Shuang sighed. He understood that if the starting ground created by old ancestor Tianyu could do this, then if the true body of old ancestor Tianyu were to descend, a single thought from him would be enough to turn him into a mortal. All the strength he had cultivated would be stripped away. Of course, the sword master of the Lake Heart Island had once entered the starting ground without being invited and wasn't suppressed by the laws of the starting ground. This was the difference in strength. Clearly, Feng Lin was still too weak and was too far away from forefather Tianyu. According to his master, Voidwalker Gu Qi, the sword master of Lake Heart Island was only a step away from forefather Tianyu. Currently, in the 7-star oceanic sacred world, forefather Tianyu and the sword master of Lake Heart Island were two terrifying existences that were overseeing their own forces. Whew! A gentle breeze blew. The grass was soft and there were some flower beds in the distance. Dongbo Shuang strolled along the familiar path. Dongbo Shuang, you're here so soon? The white-haired old man walked over from a stone house in the distance. Oh, you are now at the opening realm. Are you prepared to take the test of the opening realm? Yes. Dongbo Shuang nodded. This was left behind by the creator of the universe, a gift for their descendants. However, it was clear that it was not an easy task to obtain forefather Tianyu's gift. Previously, you experienced the test of the world deity realm, which was also the lowest level test. Higher than the world deity realm is the world realm, and higher than that is the opening realm. The highest is the sovereign realm. The white-haired old man laughed as he walked. This time it's 2 great realms higher than the previous one. The difficulty will far surpass the previous one. In this universe epic, there hasn't been anyone who passed the opening realm test. Are you sufficiently prepared? That's enough. Dongbo Shuang nodded. What a joke. Before the dream cultivation, he could have become the strongest paragon in the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Even though he did not cultivate immediately after returning, his body was still at the 8th level of the Walker's hidden secret. However, his understanding towards the Tao of Slaughter, Tao of Ripples, and Tao of Mirage was much stronger than before. His combat power was much higher too. It would be a joke if he couldn't pass the test with such strength. The white-haired old man turned and pointed afar. Dongbo Shuang looked towards the direction he was pointing at. It was the center of this void land. There were 3 grass houses there. Grass houses. The white-haired old man said, 3 grass houses? One of them is the treasury, and the other 2 are for those who passed the test of the opening realm and those who passed the test of the ruler realm respectively. I hope that you can enter. Master also hopes that some of you little fellas can enter. Amen? Dongbo Shuang nodded, definitely. It seems like you are quite confident, but you must not be careless. The white-haired old man said as he walked forward, follow me. It was the same as the previous time. After walking for an hour, they arrived 20 miles away. There were 5 huge trees there. The trunks of these trees required a few people to hold hands to hug them. The white-haired old man walked towards the tree in the center of the 5 trees. Come in. The moment his body touched the tree, he directly passed through it and disappeared. Dongbo Shuang also walked over, touched the tree and directly passed through it. Wah! After passing through space, a boundless frost land appeared in front of them. Everywhere was covered in ice. Dongbo Shuang stood in midair and looked in all directions. The frost land stretched all the way to the end of this space. The white-haired old man stood by the side. Who is my opponent this time? Dongbo Shuang was filled with confidence. Opponent? The white-haired old man laughed. He pointed in all directions. This world is your opponent. This world? Dongbo Shuang was stunned. What you need to do is to survive in this world. The white-haired old man said, either you die or you fail. Or you survive. Be careful. It has already begun. Dongbo Shuang carefully sensed this frost world. The temperature of this frost world was dropping rapidly. Just this temperature alone was enough to freeze some of the weaker paragons to death. However, the temperature was still dropping. Sparkling and translucent ice crystals started to condense in midair. An ice crystal condensed in midair. The tip of the ice crystal was extremely sharp. Shio. An ice crystal arced through the void, tearing through the sky with terrifying might. Dongbo Shuang watched on calmly. He casually tapped the void with his right hand, causing a ripple to appear in the void. The ripple instantly resonated with the void far away, causing ripples to appear. When the ripples clashed against the ice crystal instantly shattered. The white-haired old man's eyes lit up when he saw this. Lifting something heavy as though it's light. His control over the laws of profound mysteries is actually so powerful. He is much more powerful than that kid who is proficient in spacetime. Back then, the Temporal Island Lord had entered this place. Unfortunately, he failed the opening realm test and died. However, this test has only just begun. The white-haired old man muttered. Don't blame Master. Within the cosmos, there is the protection of the cosmos origin. You guys are living a relatively safe life. After you leave the cosmos, all sorts of dangers will come. Without sufficient survivability, you won't be able to grow. You will die early. Survivability is something a super expert must have. As the ice crystal shattered, the temperature continued dropping rapidly. One could see more ice crystals condensing rapidly in midair. The moment they condensed, they would shoot towards Dongbo Shuiying. Some of the ice crystals even passed through the white-haired old man's body. However, the white-haired old man seemed to be illusory. He wasn't injured at all, nor was he obstructed by the ice crystals. Dongbo Shuiying stood in midair. He casually tapped out with his finger. It was as though the strings of his zither were being plucked. Waves of spatial ripples spread out in all directions. Due to the vibrations of the void, these ripples were able to instantly appear far away. In all directions, waves of ripples shot out, shattering those ice crystals. The temperature continued to drop. Dongbo Shuiying frowned. However, as a void walker, his body was strong enough to ignore the cold. However, the drop in temperature caused the number of ice crystals to increase exponentially. The number increased by 10 times. Very quickly, it covered the entire sky. There were hundreds of millions of ice crystals. Although he flicked his finger, causing ripples to spread in all directions, under the impact of the large number of ice crystals, the ripples were quickly depleted. It's impossible to take it head-on. It's a test of your survivability. This is only the first wave. The white-haired old man shook his head and laughed. It's impossible to take it head-on. Dongbo Shuiying no longer hesitated. I'll have to rely on my domain to deal with it. Boom, with Dongbo Shuiying as the center, a towering blood wave surged out in all directions. It was like a vast sea of blood. The sea of blood spread out rapidly, engulfing all the ice crystals. Chapter 771. The blood waves surged and engulfed the world of ice. Some of the ice crystals did not shatter when they were submerged, but after enduring for a moment, they were destroyed. This was because the damage sustained within the slaughter domain would constantly increase. Moreover, through the dream cultivation, where one was constantly cultivating and battling within the dream, the slaughter domain had become even more perfect after experiencing countless battles. Dongbo Shuiying stood in the center. The surrounding blood sea surged in all directions, and the ice crystals could no longer pose a threat to him. He actually withstood the first wave of attacks? The white-haired old man was slightly shocked. The domain he executed is based on the laws of the starting ground. All the profound mysteries he used are still within the scope of the opening realm, but its power has actually reached such a level? Monarch Green, a paragon, had fused different Daos together and was able to fight against rulers. Dongbo Shuiying had also comprehended 3 Daos, of which the Tao of Slaughter and Tao of Ripple were perfectly fused. Chi, the temperature was still dropping. Amidst the surging blood waves, black liquid actually condensed. Droplets of black liquid appeared within the slaughter domain, but they did not disintegrate in a short period of time. Instead, they stubbornly persisted. As the temperature dropped, the amount of black liquid continued to increase. The second wave of survival has begun. The white-haired old man watched from afar. This time, it will be even more dangerous than the previous one. Dongbo Shuiying frowned. Currently, the condensed drops of black liquid could actually last for nearly a breath's time within the slaughter domain. However, because more and more black liquid was constantly being produced, as time passed, the amount of black liquid within the vast slaughter domain continued to increase. They did not attack and were clearly still accumulating power. This caused even Dongbo Shuiying to feel a faint sense of threat. Interesting. Come, let's see how powerful you can be. Dongbo Shuiying was actually looking forward to it. At the most, he could just hide within the Mirage World and rely on the Mirage World and Void techniques to evade. Even if the Remnant might attack him, it would be easy for his body to withstand it. However, Dongbo Shuiying was very confident in himself, and he knew that he would not be forced to hide and preserve his life. Hong. Countless black liquid suddenly moved. It pierced through the blood waves of the slaughter domain and surged towards Dongbo Shuiying. Second Wind Ripple Path Domain. The formless energy around Dongbo Shuiying's body trembled violently, and countless ripples immediately merged with the massacre domain, spreading out in all directions. When they came into contact with the black water droplets, ping 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 ping. Every single black water droplet exploded, and almost all the black water droplets were destroyed in an instant. This was the second chapter of Dongbo Shui Ying's self-created ultimate technique, Wind Ripple Path, which was a combination of the Slaughter Domain. The Slaughter Domain was the combination of the Slaughter Dao and the Wave Dao. The Wind Ripple Path was the same. During the days when he was cultivating in his dream, Dongbo Shui Ying combined the two together, greatly increasing the power of the Massacre Domain. This was also the only chapter in the Wind Ripple Path that was created purely for the Massacre Domain. This. The white-haired old man stared with his eyes wide open. The black liquid seemed to have exploded in an instant. This caused him to feel disbelief. Ever since Master created this universe, this is the 8th universe epoch. In this epoch, no one had passed the opening realm test. Although there were some who passed in the previous 7 epochs, none of them were as tyrannical as this. That's right, the test itself was tyrannical. There were countless attacks that covered the entire sky, and logically speaking, one should hide and protect their life. However, Dongbo Shui Ying was able to crush all the attacks head-on. The third wave, which is also the last wave. The white-haired old man looked at Dongbo Shui Ying with anticipation. As the temperature dropped, the vast land of the icy world actually melted. Dongbo Shui Ying personally saw the land of ice dissolving into countless black liquids. The black liquids rapidly converged and formed a huge ferocious beast. The black ferocious beast looked like a black flood dragon, just that its front claws were exceptionally huge and savage. Good fella. Dongbo Shui Ying raised his head and looked at the black ferocious beast that was formed from the entire icy world. The black ferocious beast stared at Dongbo Shui Ying and let out a world-shaking roar. Following which, it pounced over. Mph. Dongbo Shui Ying snorted coldly. The formless ripples emitted from his body abruptly trembled, and the slaughter domain also spread out in all directions, slamming into the body of the incoming black ferocious beast. The surface of the black ferocious beast's body was disintegrated into streams of black liquid, but its incomparably huge body was still in perfect condition. Third Wind Ripple Path extinguish. Dongbo Shui Ying abruptly slashed out with his right hand. His right arm expanded, covering the sky as his palm slashed down like a huge axe. At the same time, the huge black ferocious beast swung its front claws at Dongbo Shui Ying's palm. The palm slashed down. The black ferocious beast's body abruptly trembled, and then it shattered into countless black liquids. Following which, the temperature of the world rose rapidly, and the black liquids dissipated, turning into countless cold air currents. Dongbo Shui Ying retracted his slaughter domain, and he stood there with a frown on his face. Fourth Wind Ripple Path should be purer. A large number of thoughts collided in Dongbo Shui Ying's mind. Ever since he woke up, he didn't dare to cultivate as he was afraid of accidentally breaking through to the sovereign realm. If that happened, he wouldn't be qualified to participate in the creation realm's test. And now, because he was using Wind Ripple Path in battle, he could fully display the profound laws of Wind Ripple Path. He couldn't help but start to collide with the large amount of insights he had gained from his dream cultivation. Naturally, he had some ideas about the 4th chapter of Wind Ripple Path. Dongbo Shui Ying, congratulations, you've passed the test. The white-haired old man was stunned for a moment before he congratulated Dongbo Shui Ying. If I break through to the sovereign realm now, will I be able to obtain the old ancestor's gift? Dongbo Shui Ying asked. Haha, you've already passed the test. Breaking through to the sovereign realm now shouldn't be a problem. The white-haired old man exclaimed in surprise. What? Are you going to break through? That's right, your usage of the laws has already reached such a level. Breaking through is only a matter of time. Even though Shui Ying was conversing with the white-haired old man, his mind could not help but have large amounts of thoughts collide with each other. The large amount of comprehension he had in the past and the comprehension he gained from the dream cultivation were constantly colliding and fusing together. Let's go out. The white-haired old man urged. Let's go. Dongbo Shui Ying smiled faintly. The other two bodies were also immersed in the collision of insights. The white-haired old man brought Dongbo Shui Ying out of the world of ice. He clicked his tongue and sighed. The old ancestor left behind this test to test your ability to survive. You actually managed to defeat all the tests. Impressive, impressive. You are much stronger than that little fellow who specializes in time and space. Specializes in time and space? Temporal Island Lord? Dongbo Shui Ying couldn't help but ask. And let's not talk about him. The white-haired old man pointed to the 3 grass huts in the distance. His eyes were shining. Your great opportunity is here. Hurry up and go. Dongbo Shui Ying nodded. He was also looking forward to what old ancestor Tianyu had left behind for these juniors. As Shuang got closer and closer to the grass hut, the surrounding world began to distort. Due to his previous experience, Shuang continued walking calmly, passing through the layers of distorted world. Finally, he passed through the layers of protection and arrived in front of the grass hut on the leftmost side. Go in. The white-haired old man smiled. Dongbu Shuang nodded. 3 grass huts. The one on the left was for those in the opening realm. The one in the middle was for those in the ruler realm. The one on the right was the treasury. Dongbu Shuang gently pushed open the wooden door of the grass hut. The wooden door looked ordinary, but the interior of the grass hut was filled with darkness. It was like a whirlpool, making it hard to see clearly. He stepped inside and passed through the layer of dark vortex. The scene in front of him changed. This was an ordinary hut. Inside there was a table and a praying mat. On the table, there was a set of purple robes and a purple token. Suddenly, an illusory figure appeared on the praying mat. It was a slightly hunchbacked old man. He smiled at Dongbu Shuang. Junior, speaking of which, your universe was created by me. All the lives in the universe are also created by me. Since you are able to pass the opening realm test and come here, you are a purple-robed disciple of my Great Void Heaven Temple. Oh, the Great Void Heaven Temple is a sect that I founded in the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World under the invitation of the Devil Mountain Primogenitor and Alcade Master. Chapter 772. Devil Mountain Primogenitor, Jade Light Master? Dongbu Shuang immediately thought of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. Third Highness Jiao Yinlu had once told him that their primogenitor and another existence had created the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World. And now, Forefather Tianyu said that he was invited by Devil Mountain Primogenitor and Jade Light Master to create a sect in the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World. It seems like the ones who created the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World are Devil Mountain Primogenitor and Jade Light Master. It sounds like our Cosmos Forefather Tianyu and Devil Mountain Primogenitor have a good relationship. Dongbu Shuang thought. If their relationship was bad, he wouldn't have mentioned them in the images he left for his disciples. Forefather Tianyu was a little hunchbacked, but his eyes were gentle and his ears were big. He smiled and continued, my Great Void Heaven Temple is one of the top powers in the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World. In the future, if you were to leave the cosmos and meet with danger on your way to the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World, you can report your identity in desperate situations. After all, anyone with a bit of information network would know that my Great Void Heaven Temple is extremely protective. Anyone who dares to bully my Great Void Heaven Temple is courting death. Of course, my Great Void Heaven Temple also has enemies. Therefore, you can only report your identity in desperate situations. Perhaps you might be able to survive. Dongbu Shuang listened obediently. He could tell that Forefather Tianyu seemed like a good person. However, the image he left for his disciples said, anyone who dares to bully my Great Void Heaven Temple is courting death. Clearly, he wasn't someone to be trifled with. However, Dongbu Shuang really liked having such an forefather. He created the cultivator cosmos and was indeed the forefather of all living beings in the cosmos. As a purple-robed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple, you will have robes and tokens. At the same time, you can choose 3 primal chaos-grade fundamental absolute arts. Forefather Tianyu said, these are all fundamental absolute arts. I hope that you, the younger generations, can make use of these absolute arts. To create your own absolute arts. What you create is the most suitable for you. As for weapons and other external objects, you will have to rely on yourself. The path of cultivation ultimately has to be walked by yourself. Forefather Tianyu smiled as his projection dissipated. Dongbu Shuang understood that this was just an image. For example, the Voidwalker Guqi had left behind an incarnation in order to pass on his legacy. However, the laws and profound mystery system was different. It mainly depended on one's comprehension, opening a path and advancing along that path. Robe? Dongbu Shuang first picked up the purple robe. With a wave of his soul, he easily refined it. After refining it, he discovered that the purple robe naturally recognized him as its master. Other than him, the owner, no one else could use it. Clearly, the identity of a purple-robed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple was not something that could be easily faked. What a tough robe. Dongbu Shuang was speechless. After refining it, his clothes immediately changed into a purple robe. This robe. I can't hurt it even if I use all my strength. Termination energy appeared on Dongbo Shui Ying's fingertips as he tried to damage the edges of the robe. However, he couldn't hurt it at all. Dongbo Shui Ying then picked up the purple token and sensed it. Boom, a large amount of information surged into his mind. There was a lot of common knowledge about the Great Void Heaven Temple. There was even information that the robe was personally refined by Forefather Tianyu and was indestructible. There were also records of Chaos Class Absolute Arts. Chaos Class Absolute Arts were ranked second in the Great Void Heaven Temple. For example, the Devil Ancestor's Myriad Devil True Body was far from being a Chaos Class Absolute Art. This showed how heaven-defying it was to choose 3 Chaos Class Basic Absolute Arts. Although there were first-rank Absolute Arts, in reality with Dongbo Shui Ying's current realm, there was no difference between first-rank and second-rank Absolute Arts. He was too weak. The Great Void Heaven Temple has a total of 109 Chaos Class Basic Absolute Arts. Dongbo Shui Ying was slightly startled. The token contained the most basic introduction of these 109 Absolute Arts. What was a basic Absolute Art? The foundation was an Absolute Art that specialized in a single Dao. An Absolute Art would only specialize in a single Dao. For instance, the Wind Ripple Path created by Dongbo Shui Ying was a fusion of 2 Daos, making it more complex. And the rules of the Great Void Heaven Temple. No matter Violet Robe Disciples or the core Golden Robe Disciples. There were fewer Golden Robe Disciples than Void Gods who passed the trials at the Sovereign Realm. Regardless of Violet Robed or Golden Robe Disciples, they would only be taught fundamental Absolute Arts. Focusing on one Dao and fundamental Absolute Arts would make it purer. It was more suitable for reference. If one were to directly impart Absolute Arts that fused multiple Daos, it would instead affect the cultivation direction of the later generations, and might even destroy their future. The path of cultivation could not be interfered with, especially in the laws and profound mystery system which required the later generations to walk on. By imparting the best fundamental Absolute Arts to them, how far they could walk would depend on their talent. Just 3? Dongbo Shui Ying felt that it was too little. He could not help but mutter inwardly. He had already comprehended 3 Daos. Forget it. I can't go against the rules set by Forefather Tianyu. Dongbo Shui Ying thought. He knew that Forefather Tianyu did not wish for the later generations to split their energy on too many Absolute Arts. That was why he limited the selection to 3 Absolute Arts. But to him it was indeed a little lacking. 3 Daos, 1 Dao for each Dao would mean 3 Absolute Arts. And the most important Absolute Art for cultivating the true deity heart was a must. That would make it 4. I have to give up on 1. Dongbo Shui Ying thought quickly. He soon made his decision. Slaughter techniques are the most commonly seen. I've read through many books in the primogenitor Devil Mountain. I'll give up on the slaughter techniques. Dongbo Shui Ying thought. The remaining 3 are the primal chaos ranked Absolute Arts, Shadowless Heaven's Gathering, less than 3,000 incarnations, and Godlight Scripture. Shadowless Heaven's Gathering was a domain-type Absolute Art of the Tao of Ripple. Less than 3,000 incarnations was an Absolute Art for the Tao of Mirage. God-Light Scripture specialized in cultivating the soul. Outside the straw hut, the white-haired old man was waiting. A purple-robed Dongbo Shui Ying walked out of the straw hut. The white-haired old man revealed a smile. Congratulations on becoming a purple-robed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Senior, please bring me the original copies of the 3 Absolute Arts, Shadowless Heaven's Gathering, less than 3,000 incarnations, and God-Light Scripture. Dongbo Shui Ying said. All right. However, I have to say this in advance. These original copies of the Absolute Arts cannot be brought away. These original copies of the Primal Chaos ranked Absolute Arts are also the only original copies of each Absolute Art in the starting ground. The white-haired old man said. Understood. Dongbo Shui Ying nodded. Very soon. The white-haired old man took out 3 books from the treasury of the straw hut. Shadowless Heaven's Gathering was completely transparent. Less than 3,000 incarnations was completely black. As for God-Light Scripture, it was gold in color. The books emitted a formless aura. After all, these were all Primal Chaos ranked Absolute Arts. After receiving the original copies of the 3 Absolute Arts, Dongbo Shui Ying returned to the straw hut and sat cross-legged on the praying mat. This straw hut was a cultivation ground left behind by Forefather Tianyu for the purple-robed disciples. The time here could be sped up to 10,000 times. Even the praying mat was a treasure. The effects of cultivating on it were even better than cultivating on the outer layer of the primogenitor Devil Mountain. I will cultivate here. And there's no rush to learn the absolute arts. Comprehending the absolute arts requires time. I will first fuse the insights I gained from my dream cultivation. With a thought, Dongbua Shui-Ying accelerated the time within the straw hut to 10,000 times. After all, he was only comprehending and fusing the absolute arts. There was no need for him to feel the laws of heaven and earth in the outside world. Boom, in his mind, his different understandings of the Tao of slaughter, Tao of ripples, Tao of mirage, wind ripple path and slaughter domain started colliding. Chapter 773. Before starting the dream cultivation, Dongbua Shui-Ying had already reached a bottleneck in 3 Taos, including the Tao of mirage. Even though the direction of the dream cultivation was slightly different, and the comprehension he gained was slightly different, he still reached a bottleneck. He even gained some understanding of the ruler realm during the dream cultivation. When these two comprehensions clashed, it was an extremely mystical feeling. Time passed. A total of 160 years had passed in the grass house before Dongbua Shui-Ying ended his cultivation. Close to 6 days had passed in the outside world. This was much longer than the 1 or 2 days that Dongbua Shui-Ying and his teacher Bloodblade mentioned. But since the war had already begun, a few more days did not make a difference. Dongbua Shui-Ying was not willing to stop at the crucial moment of creating the 4th volume of the Wind Ripple Path. Large amounts of comprehension were fused in, allowing him to completely immerse himself in it. Crimson Rock Mountain World on Crimson Dust Island. Jia. A white-robed Dongbua Shui-Ying pushed open the courtyard door and walked out. The surrounding trees had turned red, and their leaves were scattered on the ground. Rulers are indeed different. Dongbua Shui-Ying revealed a grin. He looked into the distance. His vision pierced through the entire material realm, allowing him to see the distant Lake Heart Island historical remains. He even saw the black-robed bloodshed god Emperor, Pang-Yi Monarch Green, Abyss Primogenitor, Purgatory Ruler, Empress Qianhe Temporal Island Lord, Myriad God Palace Head, and Primal Master seated cross-legged deep within the Lake Heart Island. Many experts from the Cultivator Cosmos had temporarily relocated to the Lake Heart Island, and these ruler avatars of theirs had also been left behind. When Dongbua Shui-Ying saw these 9 rulers, the 9 of them also sensed something. They looked over with shock. Who? Those fools from the Ancestor Mother religion can't possibly discover where we are hiding? Bloodblade, Temporal Island Lord, Monarch Green, Pang-Yi, and the others followed their senses and looked over. Very soon. They exchanged glances with Dongbua Shui-Ying in the material realm. Junior disciple brother Dongbua? Monarch Green was startled. Dongbua Shui-Ying? The Temporal Island Lord didn't dare to believe it. He became a ruler? Bloodblade also revealed a look of surprise and joy. He then laughed and said, "Everyone's Snow Eagle entered the Demon Mountain cosmos. The flow of time there is more than 3,000 times faster than here, so Snow Eagle has been cultivating there for hundreds of millions of years. His original strength was already at the bottleneck, so it's not surprising that he's taken that final step and become a ruler." Normal. Qing Jun sighed. How long have I been trapped in the Venerable Realm? I had to open up another path and create my own cultivation art. Only then did I break through. Pang-Yi sighed. Dongbua Shui-Ying's talent is truly incredible. He actually became a sovereign directly. Going from the peak of the Venerable Realm to the Sovereign Realm might seem like a single step, but it was extremely difficult. For example, the Heavenly Emperor of Great Destruction was still stuck there. Haha, if Snow Eagle can become a sovereign, he'll be even more helpful, Bloodblade said. Snow Eagle, hurry over. Yes, master. Dongbua Shui-Ying replied. Dongbua Shui-Ying, I don't find it strange that you have reached the peak of the opening realm. But for you to become a sovereign so quickly, I really admire you. This is truly too fast. Primal Master transmitted a sigh. Temporal Island Lord had a strange expression on his face. He had always disliked Dongbua Shui-Ying. But now, this brat was actually sitting on the same level as him? What kind of joke was this? Humph, a newly advanced sovereign. He's probably still very tender. Temporal Island Lord consoled himself. Dongbua Shui-Ying could feel the shock from him becoming a sovereign. However, becoming a sovereign was indeed very difficult. At the very least, breaking through in the laws and profound mystery system was even more difficult. Even after fusing my comprehensions, I've only broken through in the Tao of Mirage and stepped into the Sovereign Realm. Dongbo Shuiying sighed inwardly. I've already created the 4th volume of the Wind Ripple Path. My understanding of the Tao of Slaughter and Tao of Ripple has deepened, but I'll still need some time to accumulate and accumulate. If I didn't cultivate in my dreams, I might be stuck at the bottleneck for even longer. Dongbo Shuiying understood this point as well. Snow Eagle. A voice rang out from afar. Dongbo Shuiying raised his head. Jing Qiu's figure flashed and appeared in front of him. Father, father. 2 figures also appeared with a so-so sound. They were none other than Dongbo Yu and Dongbo Qingyao. Snow Eagle, why do I feel your aura? Jing Qiu couldn't help but ask. In her perception, Dongbo Shuiying's aura was even more unfathomable. I had some fortuitous encounters after entering the Devil Mountain cosmos. That's why I broke through and became a sovereign. Dongbo Shuiying said. Jing Qiu, Dongbo Yu and Dongbo Qingyao were all stunned. Become a sovereign? They were all proud of Dongbo Shuiying and admitted that he was extremely talented. But to become a sovereign? To stand at the peak of the entire cosmos? To stand at the same height as Blood Blade, Temporal Island Lord, Abyss Primogenitor, and Myriad God Palace Head? This caused Jing Qiu and the others to find it hard to believe. The time flow in the Devil Mountain cosmos is much faster than here. I didn't cultivate for 10 million years but 600 million years. Dongbo Shuiying laughed. When the war ends, I will send you all to the Devil Mountain cosmos. Their cultivation system and resources are much better than ours. 3rd Prince Jiao Yinlu is also a good friend of mine. I have already spoken to him about this matter. A sovereign. Dongbo Yu looked at Dongbo Qingyao. Did you hear that? My father is a sovereign. My father is a sovereign as well. Dongbo Qingyao pursed her lips. The siblings could hardly conceal their excitement. Dongbo Shuiying laughed when he saw this. I will transcend first. Transcend. Jing Qiu and the others were startled. Dongbo Shuiying looked at the space beside him. He directly controlled the void through spacetime. It was as though the skin of an orange had been peeled off, revealing the flesh within. The void in front of them was peeled off, revealing a deeper space. There was an incomparably vast river surging forward. This river surged forward without any source or end. It surged through the entire cosmos. Countless life forms could be seen within this river. From the lowest level ants to the highest level stage 4 world deities, all of them were sinking within it. River of Time? Dongbo Yu, Dongbo Qingyao and Jing Qiu were all watching. They felt complicated emotions when they saw this river. After all, they had been cultivating in hopes of one day transcending this river. That is, Dongbo Yu and the others stared into the distance in shock. Far away from the River of Time, there was an incomparably towering giant. The giant's height was unfathomable and it could not be seen with the naked eye. He was simply too tall and huge. His 2 legs were still standing within the River of Time. However, the water of the River of Time only reached his knees. The thickness of his 2 legs was enough to fill up the entire width of the River of Time. With a single step, this giant arrived at the shore of the River of Time. Out of the river onto the shore. This was no ordinary river. It was the River of Time. By walking out of it, one would be a nirvana expert, a transcendent expert. White-robed Dongbo Shuiying also arrived at the shore of the void. The incomparably towering giant was rapidly shrinking. At this moment, Dongbo Yu, Jing Qiu, and the others could clearly see that the giant whose 2 legs almost burst the River of Time was actually Dongbo Shuiying. After all, the current Dongbo Shuiying had not only become a ruler in the Tao of Mirage, he was also a void walker. His true deity heart was extremely powerful, much stronger than ordinary rulers. That was why his body size was so exaggerated in the River of Time. After the towering giant shrunk, he directly fused with the white-robed Dongbo Shuiying. Transcendence, grand perfection. Dongbo Shuiying felt that his soul had become much more complete, but fusing my true body and avatar as one is the final grand perfection. To become a void god, he had to fuse his true body and avatar as one. Only when his life reached grand perfection could he take that step, stepping into the void god realm from the true god realm. Currently, Dongbo Shuiying was still a ruler. Furthermore, he did not have to enter the primal chaos void temporarily. Naturally, there was no need for him to fuse his true body and avatar as one. Father, I've heard that transcendence is borrowing the energy from the law of the world to allow one to leave the River of Time. Did you just take a step up to the shore? Furthermore, your body size is too huge. Dongbo Yu was speechless by the side. I won't speak any further with you. I'll be leaving first. Dongbo Shuiying nodded to his wife. Be careful. Jingqiu reminded him. Dongbo Shuiying chuckled before disappearing. He had already left the material realm to meet up with Bloodblade and the others. Chapter 774. A gigantic black stone pillar was rooted in the dark starry sky. Numerous chains were wrapped around the black pillar, extending into the surrounding void. Countless runes were flowing along the chains, and there were also countless runes flowing along the surface of the stone pillar. A majestic aura emanated from the pillar, covering an area of 1 trillion kilometers. This aura was enough to cause even rulers to tremble. At the top of the black stone pillar, there were 2 figures seated cross-legged there. One was the crimson-robed Bloodblade, while the other was the regal-looking Empress Jianghu. South, a figure appeared out of thin air. It was the white-robed Dongbo Shuiying. This stone pillar array. Dongbo Shuiying felt countless layers of energy obstructing his path. Originally, he had intended to directly descend to the top of the stone pillar to meet his master. Who would have thought that he would be obstructed from so far away? Even I, your master, cannot barge in. You want to do so? Bloodblade stood up from the top of the black stone pillar. He looked at his disciple who had suffered a setback and laughed. Come in. Don't resist. As he spoke, he began to control the array. A surge of energy wrapped around Dongbo Shuiying, directly teleporting him over. Dongbo Shuiying appeared at the top of the black stone pillar. He immediately smiled and bowed. Greetings, master. There's no need to be so courteous between us. Bloodblade smiled as he watched. The path of cultivation was a lonely one. On this lonely path, both of his disciples were able to follow his footsteps. Bloodblade felt quite satisfied. Dongbo Shuiying. Empress Jianghu walked over. Her voice was somewhat cold. When I first met you, you were still a little fellow participating in the myriad flower feast. In the blink of an eye, you've already become a ruler. I was lucky, Dongbo Shuiying said humbly. There's no such thing as luck in cultivation. Bloodblade said, right, which Tao did you break through to become a ruler? The Tao of Mirage? The Tao of Slaughter? Empress Jianghu was listening attentively as well. Tao of Mirage, Dongbo Shuiying said. Strictly speaking, he had broken through to the ruler realm in 2 systems. One was the Tao of Mirage in the Laws and Profound Mysteries system. The second was the Voidwalker system. In terms of strength, the Voidwalker system was the most helpful. It was a system with extremely harsh entry requirements, and the number of practitioners was extremely small. At least in the early stages, it had a huge advantage. Mirage Tao? Bloodblade was stunned. Then what about the Tao of Slaughter? I feel like I'm about to make a breakthrough. I just need to accumulate a bit more. Dongbo Shuiying said. Many peak-level paragons feel that they are just a bit off when they reach a bottleneck, but who knows how long they have been stuck there. Empress Jianghu shook her head. Dongbo Shuiying frowned. Empress Jianghu, what do you mean by that? He had only cultivated for a short period of time. How difficult was it to become a sovereign in the Laws and Profound Mysteries system? The reason why he could make a breakthrough in the Tao of Mirage was because of his dream cultivation. It was normal for him not to make a breakthrough in the Tao of Slaughter. What did Empress Jianghu mean by those words? Haha, Dongbo Shuiying, don't be angry. I am just regretful that you did not make a breakthrough in the Tao of Slaughter. Empress Jianghu said. What's there to regret about? Dongbo Shuiying felt puzzled. I also hope that you can make a breakthrough in the Tao of Slaughter. It might be of greater help to us in the war against the Ancestor Mother religion. Bloodblade said. Dongbo Shuiying was slightly enlightened. The Tao of Mirage, it specialized in survival, concealment, and illusory techniques. It was weak in direct combat. But he was a ruler of a stronger cultivation system. Hua! 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 Suddenly many figures appeared in the surroundings. They were none other than Monarch Green, who was emitting an endless suppressive aura, Primal Master, who was wearing a simple robe, and the other rulers. Other than the traitor bloody ruler Nile who had died, the other rulers were gathered here. Naturally, most of them were incarnations. Dongbo, congratulations on becoming a ruler. Dongbo Shuiying, congratulations on becoming a ruler. For you to become a ruler so quickly, it is highly possible for you to become a void god in the future. Congratulations. All of them came over to congratulate him. Dongbo Shuiying also responded with a smile. Including Dongbo Shuiying, there were a total of 10 rulers present. They were also the 10 strongest existences in the cultivator cosmos. Alright, Dongbo Shuiying, which Tao did you use to become a ruler? Primal Master asked. Dongbo Shuang felt puzzled. You are the oldest living primal master and you are asking about this too? Tao of Mirage. Dongbo Shuang answered straightforwardly. Primal master nodded. He did not say anything else. Tao of Mirage? The other rulers were relatively calm, though some revealed looks of disappointment. What's the matter? What exactly happened? Dongbo Shuang asked. Blood Blade answered, they are concerned about which Tao you broke through because of the war with the ancestor mother religion. What's the current situation? Dongbo Shuang was very concerned too. Even though he had asked his wife Jingqiu about it, in reality the paragons, ordinary powerful existences, world deities, and elites who were worth nurturing had all migrated to the Lake Heart Island historical remain. Jingqiu and Paragon Huicheng did not participate in the war and only knew the most basic information. Those with lower statuses knew even less. After all, it was impossible for the rulers to reveal the details of the war to the public. Firstly, they were afraid that there were still traitors hiding and revealing some secrets to the ancestor mother religion. Secondly, there was no need for them to tell the paragons and powerful existences. Thus, Dongbo Shuang knew very little about this war. Ha ha ha. Blood Blade laughed as he said this. The ancestor mother religion has been fighting quite fiercely with us at the start. The disturbance caused by the battle was too huge, causing many regions to be destroyed and many beings to die. But these are unavoidable. Wait till the crucial moment. The ancestor mother religion has made use of bloody ruler Nile to scheme against us. We have beaten them at their own game, causing them to suffer a huge loss, causing them to become weaker in the war. As for now, look over there. Blood Blade pointed to the void to the left. It's in that direction. Look carefully. Dongbo Shuang looked up. His vision penetrated through the obstructions of space. Very soon he saw a strange spherical fort in the starry sky. This fort was simple and unadorned. It was grayish-white in color, and there were beautiful patterns on its surface. The complexity and profoundness of these patterns far surpassed that of this black stone pillar beneath his feet. It can actually isolate my senses? Dongbo Shuang was slightly startled. His vision could not penetrate through that fort. Do you see it? That is the base of the ancestor mother religion. Blood Blade looked from afar. They are currently trapped in their base. It's a pity that this base is too sturdy. We have tried many methods and even some taboo energies that we are afraid of. We have disregarded everything and used them, yet we could not damage that fort at all. The treasures they possess far surpass ours. Primal Master said, fortunately our cultivation system is stronger than theirs. Furthermore, Blood Blade is controlling everything, allowing us to advance step by step until they are in desperate straits. Qing Jun said, I heard that their universe has reached its final stage and is undergoing its final collapse. Although the collapse of the universe as a whole is very slow, many of the relics inside will begin to be destroyed, and a large number of treasures in the relics will be discovered, so their treasures naturally far exceed ours. Dongbo Shuang was enlightened. Just like the Lake Heart Island historical remain, the Six Heavenly Wheel and other historical remains, many treasures could not be obtained. But the moment the cosmos began collapsing, these historical remains would naturally collapse too, and many treasures would appear. Furthermore, the cosmos of the ancestor mother religion had experienced many cosmos epochs, and its history was much longer than that of the cultivator cosmos. Now that it was collapsing, how many treasures would there be? Kevin was on the verge of collapsing. He had finally finished writing. He had to continue writing. There was still the second chapter. Star. Chapter 775. Their advantage lies in their treasures, but their weakness is obvious too. They are unable to absorb the energy of the world. They have to rely on deity crystals to recover the energy consumed in battle. There might be some unique treasures that can forcefully absorb energy, but the rate of absorption is ultimately too slow. If they were to die in battle, the price for them to refine another avatar would be even higher. Pangyi said, and we are the opposite. We have an endless supply of energy. Even if we were to die in battle, we could refine another avatar. In addition, Blood Blade has allowed us to refine another avatar, giving us a greater advantage in overall combat power. Since the start of the war, they rarely launch an attack. Dongbo Shuang nodded. Blood Blade said, other than this stone pillar, have you followed the connection between the arrays of the stone pillars to investigate the other regions? Dongbo Shuang inspected carefully. With a glance, he discovered that this black stone pillar beneath his feet was filled with vast power. The arrays were stacked on top of one another, covering a region spanning 1,000,000,000,000 kilometers. Nonetheless, it was still connected to the void, connecting to a distant location. With the current senses of Dongbo Shuang, he was able to rapidly follow the connection. 2 pillars, 3 pillars, 4 pillars, 5 pillars. Dongbo Shuang soon discovered. Surrounding the base of the ancestor mother religion, there were a total of 10 black stone pillars intertwining with each other, forming an incomparably huge array. Every stone pillar had a large number of shackles attached to it. These shackles seemed to be entangling the base of the ancestor mother religion through the void. According to the myriad catalog you gave me, I've discovered an array called the 12 primal pillars. Bloodblade said, I've relied on the materials and treasures we have to refine these 12 primal pillars. Even though the materials are slightly inferior, the refining method and array layout are completely the same. Its power should be 50% of the original. 12 primal pillars? There were clearly 10 stone pillars, yet the array was called 12 primal pillars? Dongbo Shuang felt puzzled. The array itself has 12 primal pillars, but the array is extremely complex. Constructing a single primal pillar will require a lot of time. Bloodblade said, the ancestor mother religion isn't foolish. They will also act to obstruct us from constructing the array. Currently we have only constructed 10 primal pillars and can't construct the 11th, because we lack manpower. The moment the 12 primal pillars were formed, they would completely trap the ancestor mother religion. The lair was completely sealed like a prison. Make them unable to come out again. Being trapped in there, unable to obtain resources, unable to obtain energy, unable to cultivate and unable to come out, is equivalent to being defeated. That's why they'll try their best to stop us from setting up the formation. But before the 12 primal pillars form a complete array, every single primal pillar is slightly weaker. They require a ruler to defend against the attacks of the ancestor mother religion. Without a ruler protecting them, a large group of religious leaders from the ancestor mother religion can easily destroy the array of a single primal pillar. Bloodblade said, if one is destroyed we can only reconstruct it. However, if one of the most important primal pillars is taken away, it will be very troublesome to reconstruct them. That's why there must be a guardian. Currently, Purgatory, Monarch Green and Primal Master have 2 avatars each. They have split up and guarded 6 of the primal pillars. Bloodblade said, Abyss Primogenitor has 2 avatars working together to guard a single primal pillar. Pang Yi also has 2 avatars protecting a single primal pillar. Temporal Island Lord and Myriad God Palace Head are working together to guard a single primal pillar. This final 10th primal pillar will usually be guarded by me. Bloodblade said, but the moment I want to construct the 11th primal pillar, my true body and avatars have to move together. Furthermore, I have the help of Blackbird. Only then can I successfully construct the array while resisting against the attacks of the ancestor mother religion. But at that time, this 10th primal pillar can only be guarded by Empress Qianhe. Empress Qianhe can't defend it, so we can't construct the 11th primal pillar. Empress Qianhe helplessly said, the guardian of the primal pillar has to face the enemy head-on. It has a high requirement for one's combat power. I'm too weak in direct combat. Temporal Island Lord and I have 2 avatars each. A total of 4 avatars have to work together before we can defend a single primal pillar. Empress Qianhe, you can't be blamed for this. Myriad God Palace had said. Dongbo Shuang completely understood after hearing that. Bloodblade's true body avatar and Blackbird 5th Uncle Master had to work together to construct a new primal pillar. The guardians could only be other rulers. Purgatory Ruler, Monarch Green and Primal Master were all very powerful. They could each defend 2 primal pillars. Pang Yi and Abyss Primogenitor were slightly weaker. They could each defend 1 primal pillar. Temporal Island Lord and Myriad God Palace Head had to work together to defend 1 primal pillar. Empress Qianhe's combat power could not even compare to Temporal Island Lord and Myriad God Palace Head. I originally hoped that you would become a ruler through the Tao of Slaughter. That way your combat power would be much stronger. Bloodblade said, even though you are a new ruler, if you work together with Empress Qianhe and rely on the power of the primal pillars array, it is still possible for you to defend it. Right now, you have become a ruler through the Tao of Mirage. The other rulers felt slightly regretful. Becoming a ruler through the Tao of Mirage would make one strong in terms of survivability, but it would be weak in direct combat. Primal Master chuckled, let's give it a try. After all, we have one more ruler. Who knows, we might be able to construct the 11th stone pillar. Dongbu's combat power might be too weak, but he might succeed if he works together with Empress Qianhe. Pang Yi added, we do not care about the energy in our bodies. We have the world energy to replenish it. There's no harm in giving it a try. Let's give it a try. Blood Blade nodded. Dongbu Shuang felt helpless. He could feel that the rulers present did not have much confidence in him. But if he insisted on claiming that he was formidable, he would not be able to do so. It was better to prove it in battle. When do we begin? Dongbu Shuang asked. I'm looking forward to it. Abyss Primogenitor mocked. You are filled with fighting spirit. Primal Master chuckled too. Don't be anxious. Let's take a look at the previous attacks from the Ancestor Mother religion. That way we will be mentally prepared. Blood Blade shook his head. He then waved his hand, causing a scene to appear by the side. That was the peak of an enormous primal pillar. A barefooted and bald monarch green was wearing a loose golden robe. He was calmly looking at a wooden warship that appeared in front of him. There were even many roots entwined on the warship. This wooden warship was huge and its power rumbled as it came crushing down. Many battle scenes were being shown. Dongbu Shuang had finally experienced it. The Ancestor Mother religion did not fight one-on-one with the cultivators. They completely relied on their accumulated treasures to battle. In terms of power, they had surpassed the rulers. No wonder the avatars of Blood Blade had died more than once in battle. This primal pillar was extraordinary too. By relying on the primal pillar with Monarch Green strength, an avatar was sufficient to defend a location. Dongbu Shuang even asked, don't we still have our true bodies at the Lakeheart Island? If we defend it, we should be able to complete the array soon, right? No matter when. Our true bodies must never participate in the battle. Blood Blade solemnly said. Pang Yi chuckled too. We do not know if the Ancestor Mother religion has any other terrifying moves. The moment we use our true bodies and avatars will die, and we will truly die. Previously, we were close to victory several times, but we discovered that the Ancestor Mother religion was deliberately enticing us. Fortunately, no matter how tempted we felt, we did not send our true bodies. Thus, we will always hold the upper hand. The more they use their treasures, the less energy they have. They will undoubtedly lose. Dongbu Shuang nodded. The more tempted they felt, the more they could not gamble. Because the cultivator cosmos could not afford to lose. On the peak of the towering primal pillar, Dongbu Shuang and Empress Qianhe were both standing there. When the time comes, we must hold on and do our best. All avatars will attack together. Blood Blade instructed. Rest assured. Dongbu Shuang nodded. His other body, red-robed Dongbu Shuang, was currently within the Eden treasure that he brought with him. He could appear at any time. Amen. I'll do my best to construct the array. As long as you all can hold on until I succeed, I'll only need an avatar to guard the new primal pillar. The other avatars and blackbirds can come and support you all. Blood Blade instructed. All right, I'll begin. Dongbu Shuang nodded. He looked in other directions. There was a ruler on every other primal pillar. Monarch Green, Pang Yi, Purgatory Ruler, Primal Master, and others were all looking at him with a smile. This time the most important target was where Dongbu Shuang was. Because the Ancestor Mother religion had tried attacking the other primal pillars to no avail, they would definitely attack this direction. Dongbu Shuang, when the time comes, it will depend on your strength. Naturally, I'll do my best too. Empress Qianhe said. Empress Qianhe, just wait and see. Dongbu Shuang looked at the surrounding starry sky. Be careful. The moment they discover Blood Blade constructing the array, they will rush over at their fastest speed. Empress Qianhe reminded. At the same time, she was carefully looking in all directions. She did not have much confidence in Dongbu Shuang, so she naturally had to do her best. Chapter 776. Dongbu Shuang was wearing a white robe. He held onto a black spear as he stood at the peak of the primal pillar, waiting silently. Many cold air currents were revolving around the peak of the primal pillar. That was the slight undulation caused by the activation of the primal pillar arrays. The air currents swept across his robes, causing them to flutter. Empress Qianhe was feeling vaguely anxious. After all, she had tried several times before, but she could not defend against it. On the contrary, Dongbu Shuang had a solemn expression. His eyes were cold and filled with killing intent as he looked at the distant starry sky. He was waiting for the enemy to arrive. This brat has just become a ruler, and has never experienced the strength of a ruler before. Much less a war between two cosmoses. That isn't a one-on-one fight, but a large group of rulers working together and relying on treasures to attack. Their power is much more terrifying. In the distance, Empress Jianghu saw that Dongbui Shuiying was calmer than her. She could not help but grumble inwardly. He has no experience, and has become a ruler after cultivating for such a short period. He should be overconfident. In a while he will know how powerful he is. Even though she hoped for their side to win, Empress Jianghu had to acknowledge the strength of the ancestor mother religion. Amen? Dongbui Shuiying's eyes brightened. Being a ruler who cultivated the Voidwalker system, he was the first to discover the undulation with his senses towards the void. He looked into the distance. They are here. They are here. Dongbui Shuiying, be careful. They have arrived. The other rulers had also discovered it. Some even took the initiative to warn Dongbui Shuiying. Because the ancestor mother religion had appeared closest to Dongbui Shuiying, it was unquestionable that the ancestor mother religion had chosen the primal pillar guarded by Dongbui Shuiying and Empress Jianghu as their target. After all, they had tried other places and failed to break through. This was the only place where they had hope of breaking through. Ripples of the void appeared in the distant darkness, spreading out in all directions. At the core of these ripples of the void, an ancient, strange-looking battleship covered in coiling roots appeared. It was approximately 100 million kilometers long, and ordinary planets were like tiny specks compared to it. Of course, in a battle between rulers this couldn't be considered huge. Boom, this ancient warship flew over in the dark void because it appeared at the outermost perimeter of the primordial pillar's array. Therefore, at this moment when it flew over at high speed, it had triggered the obstruction of the elemental pillar arrays. Layer upon layer of arrays appeared, and the warship directly collided with these arrays, causing continuous shockwaves to surge out in all directions. However, the countless stars on this battlefield had long since been annihilated, and the shockwaves only continued to spread through the dark void until they were finally exhausted. The warship continued to advance at high speed with an unstoppable momentum. Its flying speed far surpassed that of a normal sovereign. What terrifying power! Dongbui Shuiying was able to sense it through the void, and he could not help but be inwardly shocked. Even I am unable to forcefully break the array of the primal time pillar and kill my way over, but this battleship can. Fortunately, I can rely on the power of the primal time pillar during battle. Otherwise, any ruler would not be able to resist this warship. But Teacher is able to construct the primal pillar with the help of Blackbird Fifth Uncle Master and is not afraid of the sneak attacks from the ancestor mother religion. He is indeed formidable. Shuiying glanced to the distance. His vision penetrated through the obstruction of the void and saw another location where Bloodshed God Emperor was currently constructing an array. And at this moment, Blackbird Fifth Uncle Master had already turned into a colossus. A huge black bird that spanned 1 trillion kilometers enveloped the sky above Bloodshed God Emperor. The two bodies of Bloodshed God Emperor were working together to construct a new primal pillar. The ancient warship was flying at high speed. But because the primal pillar arrays covered a huge area, it would take the time taken to brew a cup of tea to reach the primal pillar. Within the warship, many religious leaders from the ancestor mother religion were standing there. They were looking at the slightly nervous Empress Jianghu and the white-robed young man standing at the forefront wielding a spear. Empress Jianghu is the weakest ruler. Furthermore, she doesn't specialize in combat. She poses no threat to us. These religious leaders were clear after many years of fighting. Empress Jianghu was more formidable in refining treasures, and her array skills were passable. She was not bad in survival either, but she was weak in combat. Even though there were a few religious leaders who were at the bottom and might be weaker than Empress Jianghu, the ancestor mother religion did not fight one-on-one. But the ancestor mother religion did not fight one-on-one. Instead, they relied on treasures to gain an advantage. It seems that they are relying on this Dongbui Shuiying this time? Who would have thought that this Dongbui Shuiying could become a ruler after cultivating for such a short period of time? The fanged religious leader said. His eyes were calm, but a newly ascended brat wants to obstruct us? He must be dreaming. I'm afraid our wooden mustache sacred ship will be able to defeat them with a single attack. Let's do it. Hurry up and defeat Empress Jianghu and Dongbui Shuiying. That blood blade will definitely come to their rescue. If he doesn't, we'll destroy the array on that stone pillar and bring it away. These religious leaders were comparatively colder. Their eyes were filled with tyranny. Even though it was within their expectations that the war would progress to this stage, Seeing that they were getting closer and closer to defeat, every religious leader felt as if a heavy stone was pressing down on their hearts. They were not willing to lose like this. They were still searching for an opportunity. Dongbo Shuang watched from afar. That ancient battleship was flying at high speed. It was getting closer and closer. So, it's about to reach my domain. Dongbo Shuang thought. He looked to the distance. Through the obstruction of the void, he could see many life planets in the distant deity world. Many beings were reproducing and living there. They did not know that a war that would decide their fates was looming over their heads. If they lost, all beings in the cultivator cosmos would be exterminated. Dongbo Shuang looked in the direction of the Lake Heart Island. There were many powerful existences, world deities, and some cultivators with higher talents over there. They had been relocated there and understood that the war was ongoing. Yet they could only wait uneasily for their fates to be decided. This is my hometown cosmos. Jingqiu or Qingyao, many people are living here. Nobody can think of snatching this place away. Dongbo Shuiying's eyes were filled with coldness. It's here. Can Dongbo hold on? Empress Jianghu is too weak. She is weaker than Temporal Island Lord and Myriad God Palace Head. Temporal Island Lord and Myriad God Palace Head have to work together to defend against it. Dongbo Shuiying only has the help of Empress Jianghu. Can he hold on? I'm just giving it a try. Even if he fails, things won't get any worse. The rulers on the other primal pillars, Monarch Green, Pang Yi, Primal Master, Temporal Island Lord, Myriad God Palace Head, and others were all paying close attention to this place. Even Blood Blade, who was in the midst of setting up his array, was giving it his all. His true body on the Lake Heart Island was watching Dongbo Shuiying from afar. Even that Blackbird fifth martial uncle who had transformed into the size of a continent was looking at Dongbo Shuiying from afar. Dongbo brat, you have to hold on. Your master has spent too much effort for the sake of victory. You have to do your best as well. Dongbo Shuiying stood there and stared into the distance. All of a sudden, Dongbo Shuiying's body abruptly expanded, turning into a giant. This giant was about 50 million kilometers tall, and even the core of the primal pillar beneath his feet became inconspicuous. This startled Empress Jianghu, who was standing vigilantly on the primal pillar. She looked up at the white-robed young man who was more than 50 million kilometers tall. She could not help but transmit over, Dongbo Shuiying, it'll be easier to defend at the core of the primal pillar. Even if your body becomes bigger, it won't help your combat power. But it'll be easier to fight like this. Dongbo Shuiying's voice boomed across the world. He held onto his spear with a single hand. This spear was also more than 50 million kilometers long. One could see blood waves erupting from the surface of his body. Hung long long, the blood waves surged out in all directions, though they were slightly affected in other directions. Most of them were still charging in the direction of that simple and unadorned warship. Countless blood waves were spreading out continuously. Soon they reached a distance of more than 50 million kilometers, 200 million kilometers, and the religious leaders in that ancient warship were watching with shock as the surging blood sea surged over. Aren't you overestimating your strength? The religious leaders did not care about it at all. Void. Dongbo Shuiying thought. Being a void walker, he cultivated using the primal chaos void energy from outside the cosmos. He was naturally good at controlling the void. It was not obvious when he was at the Paragon realm, but when he stepped into the ruler realm, he became extremely formidable. It was said that only void gods could enter the primal chaos void to travel. And the void walker system was the darling of the primal chaos void, and could enter the primal chaos void after reaching the ruler realm. At the ruler realm, his control of the void had reached a frightening stage. Currently, his Tao of Slaughter and Tao of Ripple had not reached the eternal perfection realm. In terms of domain power, his control of the void was beyond that of the slaughter domain. It's just that he had to use all his strength in this battle. Primal Pillar. Being the protector, Dongbo Shuiying began controlling the array energy of the primal pillar to support himself. Many layers of arrays began fluctuating above the slaughter domain. Hung long long, the ancient warship came crashing over. It had finally reached the boundary of the blood waves. This place was just 150 million kilometers away from the core of the primal pillar. The power of the array here was huge, and it had suppressed the power of this warship to a relatively low level. If Monarch Green or Primal Master were here, an avatar of theirs could resist against it. And at this moment, under the suppression of the slaughter domain and the control of the void by Dongbo Shuiying, the speed of the ancient warship was greatly reduced. Its flying speed was not even 1/100th of its original speed. He actually suppressed it? Primal Master, Temporal Island Lord, Myriad God Palace Head, and other rulers who were watching the battle from afar revealed looks of wild joy. Even the huge Blackbird Fifth Uncle Master was slightly startled and did not dare believe it. Bloodshed God Emperor's true body was also slightly ecstatic. They had not even engaged in close combat. Just by relying on his domain he could reduce the speed of the ancient warship to this extent? Just how strong is this domain? He should be able to defeat me just by relying on his domain, right? Empress Qian, he could not help but think from the peak of the primal pillar. Chapter 777. That was indeed the case. The moment a Voidwalker stepped into the ruler realm, he would have the combat power of an apex ruler of other systems. Just by controlling the void he could suppress some of the weaker rulers. Currently, that ancient warship was under the influence of the primal pillar array. Because it was close to the core, the power of the warship had been suppressed to 20 to 30%. If one were to say that its original power was far above that of Dongbu Shuiying, now that it was reduced to 20 to 30%, it was no longer unstoppable to Dongbu Shuiying. With the slaughter domain and void suppression, even though the warship could still fly at high speed, it was much slower than in the past. What? His flying speed is so slow? The power of this blood wave is so great? The religious leaders were greatly alarmed. They did not dare believe that this was real. They were wrong. On the surface, the most dazzling slaughter domain would at most cause some of the weaker rulers to feel troubled. Instead, the void suppression that was hidden within was several times stronger than the slaughter domain. Naturally, if one could step into the ruler realm in both the Tao of Slaughter and Tao of Ripple, the power of the slaughter domain would experience a qualitative breakthrough. His flying speed is so slow. This Dongbu Shuiying has yet to engage in close combat. As long as he displays his spear techniques, he should be able to stop the wood mustache sacred ship easily. Maybe the Tao he has broken through in is only strong in his domain, and weaker in close combat. Stop the sacred ship. Proceed with the attack and kill this avatar of Dongbu Shuiying. The religious leaders rapidly made their decision. They did not have time to waste because Bloodblade was currently constructing a new primal pillar. They had to deal with Dongbu Shuiying as soon as possible. If they did not defeat him, they would not be able to reach the core of the primal pillar and destroy this array. After the ancient battleship came to a stop, the surface of the battleship was covered in many densely packed roots. Abruptly they flew out and covered the sky as they attacked Shuiying from all directions. Every single root was filled with life energy. It was as if countless whips were lashing out at the same time. The power was so strong that it left Shuiying speechless. Fortunately, the layers of arrays had greatly reduced its power. In addition to the void suppression and the impact of the slaughter domain, these roots had become very weak. Even so, most rulers would still have a hard time defending against such a group attack. They would most likely be defeated in an instant. This was also the reason why the Myriad God Palace Master and the Temporal Island Lord had to work together to defend against it. Can he defend against it? Since Dongbu Shuiying has such a strong domain, he should be able to defend against it. He'll definitely be able to defend against it. With his domain suppressing the attacks of the Ancestor Mother religion, even if he is weaker in close combat, he should be able to defend against it. After all, he has two avatars and Empress Qian he can help him too. Primordial Master, Pang Yi, Abyss Ancestor and company looked nervous. They were all hoping for victory. But they were also afraid that Dongbu Shuiying was only formidable in his domain and weak in close combat. Shuiying, who was more than 50 million kilometers tall, stood there. The surface of his body suddenly emitted many strands of black light. Every single strand of black light followed the strange undulations and advanced at high speed, pouncing on every single root. Termination energy. Even without using any laws and profound mysteries, the power of the termination energy was terrifying, much less when Dongbu Shuiying displayed the first volume of Wind Ripple Path. The first volume was relatively simple. During a group attack, Dongbu Shuiying could control more than 1,000 termination energy at the same time. For the time being, he could not control more than 1,000 termination energy at the same time. Dongbu Shuiying, let me help you. Empress Qian he also flew out of the core of the primal pillar towards Dongbu Shuiying. Ping ping ping. At this moment, many rays of black light clashed against the roots. Every ray of black light contained a strange fluctuation, causing the roots to soften after being struck. Looking over, the originally densely packed roots seemed to have turned soft after being struck by the large amount of black light. They no longer had any power. He actually broke this move just like that? The religious leaders did not dare believe it. It was fine if his domain was formidable. Facing a group attack, he could still separate more than 1,000 rays of black light to defend against it? The crucial point was that they had not seen Dongbu Shuiying unleashing his spear. We can't use a group attack. His black light is too powerful. The religious leaders did not know that this was the termination energy that the Void Walkers had the most destructive offensive power. Then we shall suppress him directly. Attack. The religious leaders were slightly anxious. They felt that something was amiss. At this moment, be it Empress Chen He who was rushing over to help Dongbu Shuiying, Blackbird Fifth Uncle Master, Bloodblade who was constructing the array, Primal Master, Monarch Green, Temporal Island Lord, Myriad God Palace Head, and the other rulers, all of them were watching nervously. They could feel that victory was in sight. Dongbu Shuiying's strength had far surpassed their imaginations. They felt ecstatic. Even though it was unexpected, it was what they were looking forward to. First, his domain was already so terrifying. Now he could easily deal with a group attack. With such strength he might be able to resist against it. Huan, at the bow of that simple and unadorned battleship, the two longest roots entwined and arced through the sky, tearing it apart. Everywhere it passed, a pitch-black strange illusory figure would appear. It tore apart the layers of stacked arrays and tried its best to break through the void suppression and the slaughter domain, directly killing towards Shuiying. It's here. Monarch Green and the others were nervous. Even I have to rely on the Tao of Mountain to defend against it. Monarch Green thought. He was clear how terrifying this attack was. This is a suppressive technique. Can we defend against it? They were all watching nervously. As long as they could defend against this move, even though that battleship had other techniques, the previous one was a group attack that was hard to deal with. This move was the strongest, and if they could defend against it, the threat of the other moves would be low. He's using his spear. He's finally using his spear technique. The rulers were all watching carefully. What a unique spear technique. It seems like it isn't a perfect eternal Tao. It feels like it's a fusion of slaughter and ripple. But in terms of profoundness, it's extremely profound. Bloodblade and the others had sharp eyes. They had their own judgments. Indeed, it was just like how Monarch Green fought against rulers at the Paragon Realm. Even though the Tao of Ripple and Tao of Slaughter had yet to reach eternity, they had reached a bottleneck. By fusing them together, Dongbu Shuiying had created the Wind Ripple Path, based on the large number of books in the primogenitor Devil Mountain and his own comprehensions. In terms of profoundness, it was sufficient to fight against rulers. Much less now that he had created the fourth volume. And at this moment he was displaying the fourth volume. Fourth Wind Ripple Path, Extremity. The spear arced through a mysterious trajectory. Ripples revolved around the spear and converged at the spearhead. There seemed to be an invisible point at the spearhead. The ripples eventually converged at this point. Dongbu Shuiying named this spear, Extremity. The spearhead pierced through that root that tore through everything. The long and tough ancient root trembled. The energy within had been dissipated by the strange ripples. The root also softened. This scene caused the hearts of the religious leaders to turn cold. In terms of strength, the majority of the religious leaders who specialized in strength could not compare to Dongbu Shuiying. In terms of profoundness, they could not compare. We lost. He's too powerful. We can't stop him. The religious leaders understood this point. Even though the wood mustache sacred vessel had other techniques, they understood that it could not stop Dongbu Shuiying at all. What made them feel the greatest pain was that Dongbu Shuiying had only fought with a single body from start to end. His other avatar did not appear at all. Just like Monarch Green, Primal Master and Purgatory Ruler, they could defend with just a single avatar. These religious leaders felt their hearts turning cold. He still has another avatar that can continue defending another primal pillar. The religious leaders felt their hearts turning cold and unresigned. As for the cultivators, they were truly in ecstasy. This joy came too suddenly and they could not adapt to it. A single avatar can resist against it? He resisted it head-on? Everyone, including the Bloodshed God Emperor, felt dazed. Primal Master laughed out loud. Dongbu Shuiying's strength is deep and unfathomable. In terms of strength, he might be above me. Monarch Green, Purgatory, how do the two of you feel? He should be comparable to the two of us. Monarch Green answered. Amen, he is stronger in direct combat. Purgatory ruler said, he is lacking in the laws and profound mysteries, but his overall strength is at our level. After the years of war, everyone understood each other's strength well. The strongest was Bloodblade. His superiority was clear. Especially with the help of Blackbird, he became even more tyrannical. Following that was Purgatory ruler and Monarch Green. Primal Master, Pang Yi, and the others had to lean towards the back. But Primal Master had lived for a long time and had many techniques. Currently, when Dongbua Shuiying revealed his strength, he was already comparable to Purgatory ruler and Monarch Green. Aha, no matter what, he is definitely stronger than me. Dongbua Shuiying is able to defend the primal pillar with just a single avatar. He still has another avatar. Aha, the 12 primordial pillars can all be set up successfully. Pantheon Palace Master was extremely happy. Amen, this first primal pillar of mine will be constructed in a while. Bloodblade was slightly excited. Finally, the 12 primal pillars are about to be constructed. The battleship of the Ancestor Mother religion struggled for a dozen more times before giving up and retreating. And the cultivators were extremely happy. Very soon, Bloodblade succeeded in constructing the primal pillar. South, Red-Robed Dongbua Shuiying used the void evasive maneuver to rush to where his teacher, Bloodblade, was constructing the array. Teacher. Red-Robed Dongbua Shuiying arrived. Snow Eagle. Bloodblade had just finished constructing. He was extremely happy to see his disciple. Leave this first primal pillar to me. Red-Robed Dongbua Shuiying said. All right. Bloodblade laughed. I can't hold it in any longer. I'll construct the final primal pillar in one fell swoop. I've waited for far too long. Who would have thought that I could construct all 12 primal pillars today? Red-Robed Dongbua Shuiying landed on the peak of that primal pillar. Bloodblade looked at his disciple before turning to the surrounding void. His gaze pierced through the endless distance, looking at the countless planets and cultivators. He had a smile on his face. The fatigue in his heart was dissipating. This war might be coming to an end. Chapter 778. Snow Eagle. Bloodblade instructed. Right now we are constructing the final primal pillar. The closer we are to success, the more careful we have to be. The Ancestor Mother religion has retaliated against us more than once. You have to defend 2 primal pillars at the same time. You must be careful. This disciple understands. The more it is at this moment, the more we must not be careless. Dongbua Shuiying nodded. Bloodblade, you can be rest assured. This disciple of yours is quite formidable. It will be easy for him to defend against the Ancestor Mother religion. The black bird on the shoulder of Bloodblade shouted. Bloodblade chuckled. He then looked to the distance and took a step. South, piercing through space, he soon arrived at the final array formation point of the 12 primal pillars. At this moment, Dongbua Shuiying, Pang Yi, Monarch Green, Purgatory Ruler, Primal Master, Temporal Island Lord, Empress Chen He, and the others were watching from afar. They could not help but feel nervous. The closer they were to success, the more nervous they became. They were afraid that the Ancestor Mother religion with a deep foundation would have some formidable technique to break their array formation. Everyone be careful. The Ancestor Mother religion will definitely not be willing to admit defeat like this. Dongbua Shuiying, the primal pillars that the rest of us are defending have been attacked multiple times. Only you suffered a single attack. The next time the Ancestor Mother religion acts, it is highly likely that they will target you. Right, you have to be careful here. Everyone was on tenterhooks. And in the distance, Blackbird Fifth Uncle Master had already transformed into an incomparably huge body. He was like a great land covering the sky above Bloodblade. The 2 avatars of Bloodblade were doing their best to construct the final primal pillar. They're here. The Ancestor Mother religion is here. Dongbua Shuiying was the first to discover it. The other rulers discovered it too. The Ancestor Mother religion still used that ancient battleship, but this time, there were specks of jade green light circulating on the surface of the battleship. It seemed slightly unique. The location where the battleship appeared was close to the newly constructed primal pillar. It was also where the red-robed Dongbua Shuiying was defending. That Dongbua Shuiying was able to withstand the attack head-on the last time. His physical strength must be extremely strong. Normally, a strong physical body would require the help of an external object. Those external materials are very rare, and might only be sufficient for a single avatar to cultivate. The religious leaders from the Ancestor Mother religion were looking at the red-robed young man standing on the peak of the primal pillar. His robe was fluttering. He held onto a violet spear as he coldly stared at the incoming battleship. The conjecture of the Ancestor Mother religion was logical. For instance, the Ancestor Mother religion system required a huge amount of resources. Otherwise, they would not be able to increase their realm. For example, Dongbua Shuiying had once cultivated the initial scroll of the myriad devil true body. In order to cultivate it in a short period of time, he had consumed a large amount of precious treasures. This was because the rapid strengthening of one's body required an external source of energy. Simply relying on absorbing the power of the world was far too slow. Usually, one had to rely on extremely powerful external sources. Even though the Ancestor Mother religion's guess was logical, it was wrong. The walker's hidden secret, that Dongbua Shuiying cultivated, was an external source of energy, the primal chaos void energy. The primal chaos void energy could be said to be rare. After all, most void gods could only enter the primal chaos void, and it was hard for them to make use of this terrifying energy. Even if one were to say that it was too much, the primal chaos void was boundless. It contained many cosmos within, and the primal chaos void energy was much greater than the world energy. Hence, to Dongbua Shuiying, his true body and his two avatars could easily cultivate the walker's hidden secret to the 11th level. Naturally, the outcome of the Ancestor Mother religion's attack was predictable. What? This body of his is equally powerful. He can't win at all. Even though the Ancestor Mother religion's techniques were slightly strange, the red-robed Dongbua Shuiying was able to resist against the Ancestor Mother religion with just a spear and his control of the void and slaughter domain. He was able to protect this primal pillar. Time passed second by second. Red-robed Dongbua Shuiying was doing his best to deal with the Ancestor Mother religion. He did not dare to be distracted. But white-robed Dongbua Shuiying and Empress Jianghu were paying close attention to the side of Blood Blade. Monarch Green, Primal Master, Pang Yi, Temporal Island Lord, and the others were nervously watching from afar. Almost there. Just a little bit more. All of them were nervously watching as Blood Blade constructed the final primal pillar. Blood Blade was also doing his best. The enormous black bird swept its cold eyes in all directions. It was on guard at all times. Everyone knew that this was the most crucial moment. When all the shackles on the surface of that primal pillar permeated into the void, many deity runes began flowing. Dong, that enormous primal pillar let out a booming sound. Many arrays had completely linked together, and this primal pillar had finally become a perfect entity. Ha ha. Blood Blade could not help but grin at the moment he succeeded. He did not realize how big his grin was. It's a success. It's a success. The 12 primal pillars are finally completed. Dongbua Shuiying, Empress Jianghu, Pang Yi, Temporal Island Lord, and the other rulers watching from afar were all excited. Even though they felt that they were nearing success, it was only when the actual primal pillar was successfully constructed that they let out a sigh of relief. And that ancient warship had already given up and chose to retreat. The 12 primal pillars revolved around the base of the Ancestor Mother religion, forming an unseen void cage. Every single primal pillar had a ruler from the cultivator's side standing on it. The newest primal pillar had Bloodshed God Emperor standing there too. The rulers looked at each other from afar. They all revealed a smile. It was a joyous smile. Blood Blade, activate the arrays and suppress the base of the Ancestor Mother religion. Abyss Primogenitor was in high spirits. Blood Blade, we can begin. Empress Jianghu's face was flushed red. She was exceptionally beautiful, and her eyes were filled with anticipation. Teacher, let's begin. Dongbua Shuiying was also looking forward to it. He had joined the war relatively late, and the cultivators had already occupied an absolute advantage. But his combat power had still helped his side, allowing them to construct the 12 primal pillars faster. All right. The other rulers were looking forward to it. Blood Blade felt his blood boiling too. He immediately began controlling all the primal pillars. Hong Long Long, the 12 primal pillars immediately began connecting the arrays. In the past, due to the lack of primal pillars, the entire large-scale array was broken. It was like a cage, and a broken cage that the enemies could enter and leave whenever they wanted. But now this void cage had become perfect and flawless. There were no loopholes at all. Hua. One could see many void shackles appearing on the surface of the base of the Ancestor Mother religion. These void shackles were transparent. They emitted hua-hua-hua sounds as they wrapped around the base. These void shackles were intertwined with each other, and these translucent void shackles were filled with flowing patterns. These patterns intertwined with each other, tightly wrapping the entire base of the Ancestor Mother religion without leaving a single gap. Furthermore, Dongbua Shui-Ying could no longer sense the existence of the Ancestor Mother religion. The base of the Ancestor Mother religion has been completely sealed. Blood Blade revealed a grin. The Ancestor Mother religion has no way of breaking out of the seal. This day has finally arrived. The sovereigns on the primal pillars, who were scattered in all directions, all revealed looks of joy. We have fought so many times previously, and we were always lacking by a little each time. This time we have truly trapped them. Pang Yi chuckled. Perhaps it is time for this war to end. Primal Master nodded. It is time to end it. It has been too long. My heart is too tired. These 100,000 years are more tiring than cultivating for 1,000,000,000 years. The other rulers were all talking. They were relatively relaxed. It is still junior disciple brother Dongbua who is the most relaxed. He slept until the end and fought for the shortest amount of time. Monarch Green chuckled as he looked at the distant Dongbua Shui-Ying. Even though the time was short, if not for Dongbua, we would have to delay for a period of time to win. Myriad God Palace had added. Fellow rulers. Blood Blade spoke. He stopped the joyous rulers. All the rulers, including Dongbua Shui-Ying, turned to Blood Blade. Blood Blade was unquestionably the leader. His frightening attainments in their arrays allowed him to gain the upper hand time and time again in this war. Right now we can only say that we have won half the war. Blood Blade chuckled. Even though I am certain that they cannot break the suppression of the 12 primal pillars, they might have some other trump cards. We must not celebrate too early. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.